Hello, hello. Thank you to everyone who's here on a Sunday. I feel like no one watches streams on Sunday. That's perfect. Isn't my announcement tweet for this stream so funny? This will get not enough likes, even though it's hilarious. This is perfect. Get it? Too good. Okay, let's jump into this. I saw like 5 minutes of it. Bad arguments were already made. I'm gonna unmod you, like in Cooks. If you keep it up. Okay. How fast do these people talk? Let's start off at... Let's do 1.25. That should be good. If we can make it faster, we will.
Do you think it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation, yes or no?
I mean, in these circumstances, the outcome was just.
I'm asking if the deportation, if you think...
Well, I mean, it was mistaken, so they conceded that it's a mistake, right?
So was it just to do a mistake?
Alex Stein was on this fucking thing. Jump scare.
Illegal deportation.
I mean, the actual substantive outcome here is a just outcome. It's like, I don't want the administration...
Whether the outcome was just or not, is
right.
The action, the mistaken, in your words, mistaken illegal deportation just or not?
It's mildly unjust.
Even if you are right, I'll concede that I think, I ideologically, even though you and I are different on this subject, I do feel like that he didn't get it.
Interfering with Smugbug Sundays, what the hell? I never saw you. I didn't see you go live today.
Due process. I concede. Let's bring him back, and the first thing that happens when he walks the door is to turn back
So I just want to be sure. You concede that it was unjust and he should be brought back and then put in removal?
No. Stop playing games.
That's what you just said.
I am saying for the sake of arguments, I will no contest your arguments and say the end
that's
result...
pussy shit. Don't no contest an argument.
Actually,
that's the argument.
That's you engaging in semantics to change the argument I
That's
made.
pussy shit.
Hey folks, please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out my newsletter. Information is in the description.
Welcome.
Yeah, folks. Do all that. But more importantly, you should subscribe to Straighterade on YouTube. More importantly, you should like the stream on YouTube. More importantly, you should follow on Twitch so I can get to 50 followers and be on the path to affiliate sooner than anybody else on the platform has ever made affiliate. But yeah, let's get into this. If you want to donate or support the stream, !tip or donate in chat, greatly appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the Culture War Debates Podcast Live. This is our first pilot. We got a live studio audience.
Let it be known, Pisco is in a...
For everybody watching
at
home.
Oh my god, look at this. Look at this room full of cool guys.
This is our first pilot. We got a live studio audience.
Look at this. The divorced dad demographic has come out in full force to watch this live. That's really cute.
For everybody watching at home, we're going to be bringing them up. I encourage heckling, booing, and...
Pisco in a vulnerable position. He did not wear the Carhartt jacket.
Which is probably bad news for our friend Pisco. Yeah. But it's going to be fun. But we do have some serious issues to debate. And the question of today is, was the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia just or unjust? And should the Trump administration bring him back to this country? And with that being said, I would like to throw it first to the gentleman to my right. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Pisco. I'm a lawyer. I argue on the internet from a left-wing perspective. And I think it's obvious that it was unjust. It was illegal. All right. One of the big problems that conservatives cite with immigration is the fact that it's illegal in the first place. OK, so if you have a problem with illegal immigration on the basis of its illegality, surely you should have a problem with deporting people illegally.
Critical error. Critical error. It is very. I don't know if he's being extra charitable. If we're being extra charitable to conservatives, that the issue that conservatives have with immigration is merely a matter of a rule of law being an issue, which I almost never fucking believe. That's very, very charitable. I think the more honest assumption is just general fear of immigration, Mexicans, etc. Racism in most instances, but being charitable, sure, they don't like seeing the law broken. Even though when we're talking about the type of penalty for illegal immigration, as far as I understand it, these are like civil violations, right? This is it's not criminal in most instances. We're talking about the same level of like criminality as when you get a speeding ticket. So,
unless you think it was the right thing to do to break the law, do you think it was the right thing to do to break?
I'm many divorces do we think the audience are on? At least 50%.
The law. I'll ask the audience right now. Yeah. So that's to break the law. Do you think it was the right thing to do to break the law? I'll ask the audience right now. Yeah. So that's just a collective. I want everyone to notice. You all said you're fine when Trump breaks the law. He admits that he broke the law, and you're cool with it. And don't. Well, they admit that it was against the law to do so, and they promised they're going to do it to U.S. citizens too. You think he's just joking? You think it won't affect you? They've already arrested U.S. citizens, for 10 days without due process. They're lying about where he was near the border. They've deported U.S. children who have cancer. So don't think this won't affect you. And notice what you all just did. You all just said, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's just for someone to be deported illegally. Deported illegally.
It's an obnoxious crowd. Lots of random word vomit screaming. I would be shocked if this sort of event hosted by these sorts of people were to attract the best and the brightest men that America has to offer. I'm not going to lie. So that sounds about right.
All right.
So basically, just to finish off, if you're willing to say that, you're willing to say that you want Trump to be a king. But
I mean, these people just proudly just saying that they don't care. One, I can appreciate that they're at least being honest. Two, yeah, of course, it's just the leopards eat other people's faces, but they're never going to eat my face. Me reaping versus me sowing. They're totally fine with it because it's mostly impacting undesirables, quote unquote, right now, but they're not thinking about how it's going to impact them. You can tell them every single way we are eroding due process by doing this, by cheerleading it on, etc., and they will still believe, yeah, but it's not going to affect me. Until it personally affects them, they're not going to believe it.
You want him to be a tyrannical fascist. And I would ask you to look yourself in the mirror and really, take a hard look. Is that what you want this country to be?
For 24 All right.
For 24 hours, yes.
We also have...
For 24 hours, yes.
With his opening statement and introduction, this gentleman here.
Yeah.
Why just a day? Why 24 hours?
Nice to see you all. I'm Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel at the Article 3 Project.
All right. Yeah.
So I think there are, three core reasons that the outcome here is substantively just. The first is that had the Trump administration gone through the normal process to lift a withholding of removal, this guy would have been removed 100% of the time for two core reasons. First, he was found to be a member of MS-13 in earlier court proceedings. Once that finding was found and upheld on appeal, he would be stopped from challenging that. Now that Trump has designated the guy as MS-13, rather, to be a foreign terrorist organization, he's not eligible.
Doesn't this already is undermining his own? He was very specific to say that the outcome was just. But if you're saying that if Trump had gone through the legal channels that he was supposed to, it would have yielded the same outcome, then why didn't they do that?
Eligible for withholding of removal.
I heard noises. If somebody followed me, thank you for following me.
Anymore, so he'd simply have lost no matter what. And the second reason is that in the interim, between the time he got this withholding of removal and now, the 18th Street gang, which supposedly threatened his mother's pupusa shop, a preposterous story from the outset, that 18th Street gang is no longer effective in El Salvador, which was the basis for his supposed fear of persecution, which is why the withholding of removal was granted in the first place. So the outcome wouldn't have changed. This is what we would call, to analogize, harmless error. The second reason it's substantially just is because the guy's a wife-beating MS-13 gangbanger. Yeah. And who exploited our laws for 14 years. And in fact, the more that comes out about the guy, you're realizing, just what kind of person he is, threatening his wife and children, telling them that, you can't leave me because I'll kill you. Funny thing, I was reading a book about MS-13, and a different MS-13 gangbanger did say the same thing about a girlfriend he was dating. There's this sort of an underlying entitlement. But substantively, just obviously a very bad dude, a human trafficker, the kind of...
Does this dude think that the audience has an issue with these sorts of views on women?
Person who drives people, from Texas to Maryland who don't have any luggage. Do you think those people have free will? No, those are captives. And, we can get more into that later.
And we will. There's one more man joining us tonight to make sure that there's a little bit of chaos and humor.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I like. Well, it's Primetime 99, and I just want to say, Pisco, you are very smart, but you're still a libtard. And, but no, I agree. I actually agree with you on this because listen, whether it was unjust or not, we got the outcome that we want. His big booty Latina is staying in the country. And we need to do this as, a lesson to these other gangbangers and Trinidad Arruga adjacent people that if you come to our country and, you bring your big booty Latina, we're going to kick your ass out and keep her. So I think...
This guy kind of sounds like Fuentes. Am I wrong?
Alex, the Latina in question is a U.S. citizen.
I know, but still, she's still a big booty Latina. I'm saying it doesn't matter.
I mean, if the goal is to protect the U.S. citizen Latina from the predations of the MS-13 gangbangers.
I'm saying protect even illegal or legal big booty Latinas. They carry the same weight in my eyes. So I guess not apparently to you. So I'm saying, yeah, she's a legal big booty Latina, but he learned his lesson. They don't get to go back to El Salvador or wherever you get kicked off to.
I mean, this guy being here, as much as I despise Alex Stein, it is more indicative of where the average like Maga mindset is. This guy is like he's there to provide the like veneer of seriousness to these arguments or whatever, but in reality, this guy is more in line with how people feel about this shit as far as I'm concerned.
And that's exactly why Alex is here.
Yes.
But we are going to be bringing up members of the audience, people who have submitted who want to join this debate, and give you guys a chance to have your thoughts heard on this matter.
Wait, I want to do 2 seconds, just background on Maga Garcia. No, I don't want to upgrade. What to know about the deportation of Abrego Garcia to El Salvador? President Trump's aides have dug in on insisting that he was lawfully sent to a prison in El Salvador after the administration had admitted to a quote-unquote administrative error. This was back on April 21st. Trump and his deputies are digging in on their refusal to heed a Supreme Court order to facilitate the release of a Maryland man who was deported to El Salvador last month, despite another court order expressly forbidding him to be sent there. And I think what this is in reference to is the Supreme Court, I think it was 9-0. They said that it was his deportation without due process was completely illegal. Something like that. The administration has shifted from admitting in court filings that the man Kilmar was deported because of an administrative error to insisting that officials were right to send him and other migrants to a prison in El Salvador called CECOT, where detainees are cut off from the outside world and cannot meet with lawyers. Mr. Abrego Garcia has since been transferred to a different facility. The president's deputies have repeatedly accused Mr. Abrego Garcia of being a member of the MS-13 gang, which they have designated as a terrorist organization. On Friday, Mr. Trump held up a photo of Mr. Abrego Garcia's tattooed hand in the Oval Office. But this is not, that's photoshopped on there, which he didn't fucking realize. What is it? Of his tattooed hand, the Oval Office, arguing that the markings indicated he was a member of that gang. The sentiment has been echoed by President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, who visited Washington last week and said he would not return Mr. Abrego Garcia to the U.S. The Justice Department has argued it can take a passive approach to the Supreme Court's demand that the administration facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release, doing little more than letting him into the United States if he manages to present himself to a port of entry. Can take a passive approach to the Supreme Court's demand. I feel like this is we can ignore it. The strong legal argument that we could just ignore it, or we could, try to rebuke it. Yeah, Democrats and even some conservatives, including a highly esteemed federal appeals court judge, have criticized what they see as the Trump administration flouting a court order to reverse Mr. Abrego Garcia's deportation as part of a pattern of the admins disregarding the rule of law. Here's what to know about him. He entered illegally, he was allowed to say, according to documents by the Justice Department. He entered illegally in March 2012. Through the U.S. border near McAllen, Texas. He was arrested in March 2019 while looking for work at a Home Depot in Maryland. The Prince George's County Police records of that arrest from the same tranche of documents released by the admin identified him as a member of MS-13, citing his clothing, the fact he was apprehended alongside a known MS-13 gang member, and info about his role from a confidential source. He's challenged the determination about his gang standing, according to the documents, arguing it was based on hearsay. In October 2019, an immigration judge ruled that Mr. Garcia could not be deported back to El Salvador because he faced a credible fear of persecution from a different gang, Barrio 18. The judge allowed him to stay in the U.S. under a status called withholding of removal, and he obtained a work permit. But despite the ruling, he was arrested again nearly 6 years later on March 12th and accused of having ties to MS-13. He was sent to El Salvador 3 days later without a court hearing. The Trump admin has also accused Mr. Garcia of human trafficking based on an episode in 2022 when he was pulled over by the Highway Patrol in Tennessee while driving 8 people from Houston to Maryland. He was not charged with any infraction, but was giving a warning for driving with an expired license. I mean, this guy, the other guy, sitting next to Alex Stein, was trying to make it sound like you can't drive with a bunch of passengers. His wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, said he worked in construction at the time and often drove his co-workers from job to job. Mr. Abrego Garcia is raising 3 kids with his wife, 2 from her previous relationship. In 2021, she filed a protective order against her husband, alleging domestic violence. In a statement last week, however, she said she did so in case things escalated, adding that they never did. She has publicly campaigned for her husband's release. He has 2 brothers who are legal permanent residents, according to the documents released by the Justice Department. Then some congressional Democrats met with him. Top advisor said he's not been mistakenly deported. Stephen Miller, little rat. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador, Mr. Miller added. This was the right person sent to the right place. Until Mr. Miller's contradictory assertions, the idea that Mr. Abrego Garcia had been deported in Europe was not in dispute. The view had already been advanced in court papers by D. John Sauer, the Trump administration Solicitor General, Robert Cerna, the acting field officer director for enforcement and removal at ICE, and a Justice Department lawyer who was handling the case until the department fired him. Nice. Even the Supreme Court, in its ruling in the case, took the position that Mr. Abrego Garcia had been improperly deported to El Salvador. He keeps pressing that he's part of MS-13, even though it was based on hearsay, so it was shoddy grounds in the first place. The judge in the case had ordered inquiry into whether the White House violated the Supreme Court order. There we go.
But I suppose the question to kick it off, simply, to either of you who wants to start, was the deportation just or unjust?
It was unjust. It was illegal. Do you think that
Those aren't synonyms.
Wait, so
Those aren't. Don't mean the same
I understand that, but in this context, do you think it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation? Yes or no?
I mean, in these circumstances, the outcome was just.
I'm asking if the deportation, if you think.
Well, I mean, it was mistaken, so they conceded that it's a mistake, right?
So was it just to do a mistaken illegal deportation?
I mean, the actual substantive outcome here is a just outcome. It's like, I don't want the administration.
Whether the outcome was just or not, is the action, the mistaken, in your words, mistaken illegal deportation, just or not?
It's mildly unjust. I actually.
So you actually agree.
To
be clear, you actually agree that it was unjust. To be clear,
It took like 30 seconds for that guy to fold.
everyone here agrees it was unjust.
No.
Well, okay. So Tim, do you think that the deportation was just to do an illegal act?
And no, obviously, unlawful and unjust are not synonymous, but in this case, they pretty much are, because what we're talking about, the violation of due process.
See, what you're doing right there is I'm just going to say, that's not debating. To load the question with, I presume it was illegal first, now answer.
Do you agree it was illegal?
When did you start
That's not debating.
beating your wife?
Well, did you agree it was illegal? What's loaded about that?
So the issue is it a crime to make a mistake?
Not a crime. Was it illegal? Was it illegal, yes or no?
No.
9 justices on the Supreme Court unanimously, Will and I, both lawyers, will tell you it was illegal. Will, it was obviously illegal.
no, it was an illegal deportation.
It was an illegal deportation.
So hold on. You're saying that it was illegal because the Supreme Court said it was?
No.
It's emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. That's Matt Marbury.
Does the Alien Enemies Act supersede?
He wasn't sued under the Alien Enemies Act. Or wasn't deported under the Alien Enemies Act.
Stephen Miller claims he was.
No, he absolutely wasn't. He's not a Venezuelan. The proclamation for the Alien Enemies Act only applies to Venezuelans.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Say again.
Does the Alien Enemies Act apply to El Salvador?
The proclamation issued by the president only to Tren de Aragua members who are Venezuelans. By its terms, the proclamation by its terms, even assuming it were legal, would not apply to him.
Yeah, this is not an Alien Enemies Act question.
So the question is, do you agree it was illegal?
If the argument is the Supreme Court said it was illegal and that's your basis for it, then I agree with you, yes.
Okay. Do you agree with the president or the executive?
The thing is, everybody agrees it's illegal.
Well, just to be clear.
Even though Tim Pool just said it wasn't.
No, I believe it was an
for a while
administrative
said it wasn't.
error. And the issue is we're talking about the semantics of what it means to be illegal, right? So is it illegal to smoke pot? Yes. Is it unjust? No. People can smoke pot. The fuck
Okay, so that's why I'm asking you.
No, okay. This is so dishonest to compare these things, because for it to be like a one-to-one analogy, this would be the equivalent of putting someone in jail. How do I even put this into words? Like, fine, smoking marijuana is illegal, but like convicting somebody on hearsay or on very, very shaky grounds, as opposed to them like unambiguously breaking the law.
First, if it's illegal.
And then defending that, saying that like, well, the law is unjust. It should be okay for people to smoke marijuana, but defending that, well, it's okay that, people are put away under that law, even if he wasn't given, the person in question who was accused of it wasn't given due process to actually prove that they had been breaking the law.
Now you agree it is illegal, fair, right?
In the context of which, so the first thing I was trying to do was understand your view and how you're viewing what illegal means. You're saying, as a subject of law, as the Supreme Court has ruled it, we all agree the Supreme Court did in fact say it was illegal.
Correct.
Agreed.
Okay, so if it's the case that you think that this deportation was illegal, do you think it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like I think it's just for someone to smoke pot.
Okay, so if they did the same thing to a U.S. citizen, though, obviously you'd think it's unjust.
Yes.
Okay. If they killed Gilmar Abrego Garcia, would you think it's unjust?
Yes.
Why's that?
Which they've done. They've already deported. There was like a baby that was deported who was American citizen. Was... see if I can find this.
Killing people is one of the worst crimes, in fact.
Okay,
Obama killed 4 American citizens. We fact checked this.
Wait, but you thought that was wrong, right?
Absolutely.
So then so if it's the case that you thought that was wrong, wouldn't it be wrong, for example, to put Gilmar Abrego Garcia in prison for the rest of his life without an opportunity to like have a case?
No.
Okay.
So let me try this real quick. You're trying to equate.
This is what it was. But apparently they've dropped the lawsuit. Family of 2-year-old deported U.S. citizen dismisses suit against Trump administration. The family of the 2-year-old U.S. citizen who was deported with her mother to Honduras last month voluntarily dismissed its lawsuit against the Trump administration. One of the attorneys who represents the family told ABC News, given the traumatizing experiences the family have been through, they are taking a step back to have full decisions about all of their options, the safety and well-being of their kids, and the best ways to proceed. They're voluntarily dismissing this case to give themselves space. Last month, the federal judge said he had a strong suspicion that the Trump administration deported a 2-year-old citizen to Honduras with no meaningful process. Okay, they're like the Trump administration is like taking a victory lap over this because I see a homeland.gov website saying from 1 day ago celebrating that this lawsuit was dropped, even though it wasn't dropped or struck down because they don't have the basis to do it. The family is just like weighing their options and voluntarily dismissed it. So it's not like this didn't happen.
Say Barack Obama, right? He extrajudicially assassinated a 16-year-old kid without charge or trial. I mean, if a dude cracks a grandma over the head with a baseball bat and kills her, I say lock that guy up. If a guy accidentally runs a woman over, then we say there could be negligent homicide. There's degrees of whether the...
Okay, would you say lock that guy up, though, without giving him due process, without giving him a jury trial, or letting him go before a judge, or letting him speak and confer with the lawyer? This is the equivalent of what you're defending, which is that based on circumstantial evidence, that's enough to convict people. Based on circumstantial evidence, that's enough to deport people.
Crime is bad. Is it justice in some circumstances and not when a crime is... Not all crimes are solved in the same way.
I'm not alleging that it's a crime.
They rise to the same level of retaliation.
I'm not alleging that it's a crime. I'm saying it's illegal, and the Supreme Court found that. And right now, what we have, this is what the Trump cult does to you. This is what the Trump cult does to you.
The ad hominem.
So this is what it does to you. You are defending an illegal deportation of a human being who has the right to have his case heard. The basic essence of due process.
Funny thing is he actually,
I mean, denied of anybody, it will be denied of you in the course of time.
No, it won't. He's not a citizen.
So if
And
you're
he was
deported,
previously adjudicated as an MS-13 gang
that's
member.
false. And you brought it too.
So there was a finding that he was an MS-13.
So
absolutely.
You brought up collateral estoppel, didn't you?
Yeah. So he'll be stopped from challenging.
So of course not. So this. So I know, because I have to say a lot of these lawyers like file shipwrecked, and they get shipwrecked as a lawyer, and it's garbage.
What is a collateral estoppel? Also known as issue preclusion, is a legal doctrine that prevents a party from relitigating an issue that had already been decided in a previous lawsuit. It essentially means that once a particular issue is resolved in a valid and final judgment, that issue cannot be relitigated between the same parties or their privies in a subsequent lawsuit, even if the new lawsuit involves a different cause of action.
And the truth is, there is no collateral estoppel here. What is the finding that the bond court hearing made?
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone does something illegal, is that just or unjust?
It's sometimes unjust, sometimes just. It depends.
If someone does something illegal, should they always be held under... No. Okay, so we agree that the real question here is not whether it's just or unjust, whether we think the penalty should be severe or not.
No. So I agree.
12 minutes into this, I don't know how many stupid like gotcha questions Tim Pool had like tried to ask before he finally got one on track. It was at least 4.
Not all illegal things are unjust. I'm asking, in this case, is this illegal action by the Trump administration just or unjust? And you said it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation.
Now,
I'm going to ask you why. I'm going to ask you why.
Right. Let me answer that. So the first thing I got to say is you keep loading this as though illegal is the pretext by which something would be just or unjust, which is why I asked you, is if something is illegal, is it...
Oh, Jesus. Didn't think Pisco was still around. He's bigger than ever. He has like 21 subscribers. When I subscribed to this channel, only had like 1,000, and that was back in January.
Just or unjust.
It can be. It depends.
Then you don't need to say, am I okay? Why am I okay with Trump doing something? The pretext by which something would be just or unjust, which is why I asked you, is if something is illegal, is it just or unjust?
It can be. It depends.
Then you don't need to say, am I okay? Why am I okay with Trump doing something illegal? The question is the deportation.
No, I do need it, because I think as a standard, right, there's a threshold here that in the main, when the government does something illegal, we're going to presume it's unjust unless you can reach some threshold. Well, think about it, right? So if this can't just be a game of we let the government do whatever we want to people we don't like. We're fearful of the government wielding power in the main because of structural reasons. There's a reason, for example,
But they're not fearful of it in this case because they think it's going to exclusively apply to illegals. So these people aren't Americans in the first place, so fuck them. Who cares?
You believe that someone who's accused, for example, of should be given a trial, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why is it that? Why do you think that someone who's so horrific, and if everyone agrees that this person, why should we give them a trial?
I'm guessing he said grape. Only the real word.
An American citizen gets a trial.
What about an illegal alien?
They don't.
So you don't think? So just be clear. This is where we're at now. You don't think that crimes that are committed in this country by illegal immigrants, that they should have trials for those crimes?
You know, it's so funny that these people take this position because I guess if you think about this for 10 seconds, I would expect this to be the answer that you come up with if you want to try to decrease the amount of people that come into the country illegally or overstay their visas, etc. You think just crack down, give them no due process, etc. But all you're doing is incentivizing more and more illegal immigration, more and more people to overstay their visas, and you will actually yield more illegals in this country because they're going to be too scared to. They're going to be more evasive of law enforcement because they're scared that they're going to have their like green cards or their permanent resident status revoked for any reason, whether it be something as minor as like a traffic stop or something more serious. They're afraid that they're not actually going to be given like due process, and that will lead them to just be far more discreet and less forthcoming and less willing to actually like identify themselves or like speak to law enforcement so they can like properly investigate this stuff, and less cooperative than they would have been otherwise.
The penalty.
Well, no, they do have. Wait. So, to be honest, we do have trials for.
Hold on. So the penalty for an illegal immigrant typically is for most who cross within 2 years is expedited removal. That means their due process is an immigration officer will determine whether or not they're here legally or illegally.
That's not what we're talking about crimes. We're talking about crimes.
And yeah. So when we get someone here who like or murder somebody, why are we going to spend taxpayer dollars when the outcome is going to be you get sent out of the country no matter what happens?
Tim, so actually, a lot of times, we deal with this. We want them to be prosecuted so that they actually face a punishment instead of getting deported. So that is, we actually spend a lot of taxpayer resources on prosecuting illegal immigrants, at least in Texas.
But like, I just want to dwell here for a second. The Constitution says that persons in this country get trials if they are accused of a crime before they're punished. No, it does not say that. You can read the Constitution.
Let's clarify the fact. Does it say citizens or persons?
So
it says persons.
So for example,
let me ask you this though: in the case of Abrego Garcia, do you think that is a sweeping policy that's being used to deport mass amount of people, or is this
what is a sweeping policy?
Well, I'm just saying the pretext that we use to deport Abrego Garcia. I'm saying, do you think that?
I mean, I'm not saying that lawyers can't be wrong, but the arrogance of Tim Pool to question whether or not a lawyer knows the Constitution better than he does, being like, does it say citizens or persons, is just stunning.
That is being used right now to deport a massive amount of people, or is this an isolated incident?
But I guess to be fair, if I was talking to some MAGA lawyer and they told me what the Constitution said, I'm immediately going to be suspect.
And in your opinion?
I don't think it's an isolated incident. I don't think it's relevant to the question presented, which has to do with this. But I will answer it.
I'm just saying, when you make an omelet, a few eggs are going to get, cracked. I'm just saying there are going to, it sucks how it is.
Just bite the bullet and say, yes, it was unjust. Of course it was unjust. We don't want the government in the main unless there's exceedingly like crazy circumstances to violate the Constitution, right?
Pisco, real quick, but do you think it's going to be used in a massive way? Or
it already is. It already is.
But who else? What are the examples do we have? I know you talk about the cancer girl, but they actually were allowed to stay. So when leftists say that they were forced to leave, they chose to go with their family. They were 100% allowed to stay in America. So we didn't
the cancer girl. I think he's talking about that 2-year-old.
Deport a cancer person.
If you guys are stuck in your echo chambers, and again, I think that there's some of that going on here. So if it's that case, then you wouldn't know, for example, that this U.S. citizen, there's a parent here. There's an opportunity that people have basic due process rights to see if, like, I don't know, an aunt wants to care for the U.S. citizen, or another parent has parental rights and the right to have custody over the parent or the child.
In the instance you're referring to, the mother requested the child.
So I don't know which case. There are multiple cases of U.S.
There's
citizen
two.
One of which the mother denies that's what the outcome that she wanted. But regardless, just the policy that we're talking about is with respect to people who are not citizens here. And you asked if it's like a mass policy. They're already by the Supreme Court, again, unanimously saying that these people are entitled to due process. You guys don't think that. You guys don't think that there should be due process.
I don't think that's.
Everyone thinks they're entitled to due process. The question of what process is due, and it's extraordinarily limited in the context of legal
but Tim just said, even in the context of criminal. So Tim just said, in the context of a criminal indictment, that there should not be trials for people who are here illegally. You don't agree with that?
No, I don't.
Hold on. This is a really good example for media literacy. What he did is he is falsely framing the arguments, redirecting it. What I'm saying is, There is no trial required for a crime committed by an illegal immigrant because they'll get an expedited removal before a trial can take
You're
place.
conflating an immigration hearing, which is civil, and I agree. There's no. So
Indeed.
you guys don't get confused, all right? I'm gonna teach you something.
I'm not conflating anything.
Immigration law and a removal proceeding is not a criminal matter. Okay, that's different than the criminal proceeding. Yes, I agree. You don't need trials. That's why J.D. Vance is full of shit.
You are
need trials.
I gotta stop you. You are actually making a mistake. I am aware you are asking for a criminal trial for, let's say, an illegal immigrant who committed a murder. I am arguing that we will deport that person back to their home country, and then we're not going to hold a trial for him after the fact.
So wait. So you're gonna take a murderer who committed a crime in this country. You're not gonna subject him to punishment in this country, and you're gonna send the murderer back to El Salvador just so he can cross the border again and murder someone?
Well, that's why Trump has CCAT, doesn't he?
Hang
You won't answer that question.
on. That wasn't embedded in your hypothetical there that he would go to CCOT.
You presented information to the argument that was not previously included in it.
Which was
the
what?
argument
And also, if Tim Pool is being honest, yeah, of course, he doesn't care. He's not going to care what happens outside this country.
is an illegal immigrant here gets deported first.
I wonder if they touch on the non-citizen with Social Security card voting lies.
Before he goes to trial for murder? Come on, guys.
How do
He's
you
going
go
to
to
trial for
trial
murder.
for someone who's not in the country?
Wait, so we do, this is high priority for our government to spend money on trials protecting U.S. citizens, and it's one of the, our common things as a guess what?
Actually, hold on. Let me give a
Wait,
hypothetical to Tim real quick, though. Tim, this is where I think you're wrong. I'm sorry. So, would you have rather had Laken Riley's murderer just deported, or are you happy that they had a trial and got convicted?
Deported.
That's crazy. So you trust Bukele? You trust this El
That is insane. It's insane. It's a crime that allegedly happened on U.S. soil. Why would they just be deported without any accountability?
Salvadorian guy?
Yeah.
No, wait, just to be clear. You trust,
but I'm
you trust
happy
El
that he's
Salvador to
getting
keep this guy in jail? This guy committed a crime on U.S. soil, and you trust El Salvador? You trust El Salvador? Yeah. Here's the problem. What happens if Bukele decides this guy goes free? What happens if they overthrow Bukele?
I got it, guys. I figured it out. We secure our border.
So in this country, there's
clapping.
justice for crimes, and what you're talking about is injustice. It's for the purposes of expediting something, but it's not true justice. For example,
I actually disagree with you. I think what you're saying isn't justice, because what you are doing is creating a defense for people who had no right to be here in the first place, so that taxpayers have to spend money on someone who's not going to be here after this. And if you look at the case of Abrego Garcia, this guy. What was the due process that was failed? He was supposed to get what's called a USCIS official interview.
False.
To make it, this is under the law. This is actually
You're
the
wrong.
It's in the law.
8 CFR.
I don't have my phone on me.
So it's 8 CFR 2.
The withholding of
24
deportation
sub
law
08
states that if an individual receives a USCIS interview that determines the circumstances of their home country has changed, they can be deported. Withholding is void.
8 CFR 224. Look it up. So you go to sub F on that statute, or it's a regulation. It is not the province of USCIS to determine whether someone's going to be,
You have to go back to the immigration judge.
Yeah, you have to go to
right?
IJ judge.
Right.
You have to go to immigration judge.
It wouldn't- it would be
Pull up the law on withholding of deportation, which explicitly states that a USCIS interview can determine that the circumstances of their home country has changed. I don't have my phone on me.
That's affirmatively. We're talking. So this is the problem. This is defensive relief. And so in the immigration context, you can apply affirmatively to USCIS,
Right.
or you can put before an EOIR
Then
judge.
I'll say this. I concede. Let's bring him back, and the first thing that happens when he walks in the door, he turns
So
back
I
around.
just want to be sure. You concede that it was unjust and it should be brought back and then put in removal.
No. Stop playing games.
That's what you just said.
Stop playing games. I am saying, for the sake of arguments, I will no contest your argument and say the end
That's
result.
pussy shit. Don't no contest an argument.
That's-
Actually,
that's-
take the argument.
fair. I think it's fair.
That's you engaging in semantics to change the argument
That's
I made.
pussy shit. Why don't you actually engage with the argument? Why don't you actually engage with the argument and not say, oh, I don't know, because I'm backed into a corner. Now I'm just going to say, I don't really care.
What this guy does is he plays semantic games with the ideas being presented so that he can try and finagle out of when he's backed into a corner.
So how am I backed into? So I understand the proposition to be,
Because
is the deportation unjust?
the
And
end
wait.
result-
I understand the proposition to
The
be.
end result of Abrego Garcia's return to this country is immediate expedited removal.
So
What the f*** is the point?
So I
Waste
heard.
our fucking time.
So I just want to be clear. I understood the proposition. that you laid. I listened very carefully. Said, is it just and should it be brought back? And you just said, okay, I guess it should be. It was unjust. It should be brought back.
The point is, it's called a moot point when you're
the debate
arguing
proposition
something
is a moot point?
I mean, he's already precluded the possibility that it might yield a different result entirely. He's assuming that he's going to be brought back only for him to be sent back immediately. But if he's been in the country for several years with really no issue, even with the DV charges that his wife had said that she was going to bring against him or whatever, it's not entirely possible that he was just going to be sent back.
material to the end result of what we're trying
The
to
debate
accomplish.
proposition is a moot point. I just want to hear you say
So you're
that.
playing
Tim,
semantic
Tim,
games
okay.
again. You're
Oh, we're
playing
not.
semantic games
I
again.
also heard everyone else had this was debate. Come to the arena debate. You guys are coping. You know
We
you
are
so just bite
debating.
the bullet. Bite the bullet.
Can I say something? Can I
Let's
say
get- let's
something?
get Will, let's get Will.
I supposedly am debating here, right? I don't even remember that was supposed to happen. So the resolution was
All right, let him
supposed to
talk.
be-
Let him talk.
The resolution was supposed to be, is the deportation
Thank you for subscribing.
profoundly unjust, right? And there's a reason for that adverb, right? It's because there is a mild injustice that happens whenever the law is not followed, right? So, unless there is like some dramatic reason to not follow the law in a particular instance, there's usually a mild injustice. I think that the more interesting, and the funny thing is the Trump administration has conceded to this since the beginning of the filings, right? The Trump administration conceded from the outset that this was administrative error, that they should have gotten the withholding of removal lifted before they removed him to El Salvador. I don't think that's the most interesting question because it's a question that like even the Trump administration agrees to for the most part. I think the question is this a profound injustice? And I think the answer to that is obviously no, for the reasons I laid out at the beginning, right? I think I'd like to actually hear your argument for why this is a profound injustice and not merely a mild one.
And I want to make one little point though, Pisco. When
I feel like he's conceding that it is an injustice, but it's just like doesn't matter.
it comes to Abrego Garcia, and I personally think this is an isolated incident, but even if you are right, I'll concede that I think,
Why? Why would you ever assume that this is not setting the tone for what more is to come?
ideologically, even though
I mean, he likes that, but now he's like, I'm sure he would like that. But why would you ever think that it's going to be an isolated incident?
you and I are different on this subject, I do feel like that he didn't get his, due process. But, and I had to debate this on college campuses, it is hard. But in this instance with Abrego Garcia, I think it's isolated, and I don't think that it's a massive problem. I mean, that's what I think about this, but I do concede.
They go and find this question. It's like, who really cares, right? Who really cares? One guy, whatever.
Well, it's kind of like you're George Floyd. They're making this guy to be like a hero, and it's one incident, and it's bad, but he's not a hero, and he still, beat his wife. So it just kind of sucks that even though you are right in this instance, I don't want to be like a left.
I don't even think that was true. Because she said that wasn't true. Where was it? She filed a protective order against her husband alleging domestic violence. I don't think he actually ever did it.
Because they say that the means, the ends justify the means, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to break the law to get the outcome that we want.
So I want to be clear. I'm going to give you a hot.
It's like just stuff like that where they like sneak in these like tiny premises to their argument that just go unchecked.
They say that the means, the ends justify the means, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to break the law to get the outcome that we want.
So I want to be clear. I'm going to give you a hot take. This is worse than the George Floyd situation. This is worse than the George Floyd situation, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, wow. Yeah, ones in the chat.
So-
in the chat.
I don't know from what perspective that could possibly be right. Like, it doesn't matter how you come down on George Floyd. The valence of George Floyd is bigger on either
So I
side.
understand. So I take the assumption.
Let him talk, guys.
And I do believe that George Floyd was murdered. I watched that entire trial. I think it's clear that they're
Fentanyl, though. Okay, go ahead, but let's let him say.
Yeah, no, you should listen to the pulmonary cardiologist, his testimony. Yeah.
Let him talk. Let's hear this.
Yeah.
Guys, he's about to make a good point.
So
I'm interested in this.
So this is why I do think that even though there's a history of cop violence, not just on black people, on people of all races, whatever, and it's a problem in the United States. I think that it doesn't present the same kind of civilizational problems that presented by what the Trump administration is doing here. What they're trying to do here is put people outside of the contours of U.S. law. We have prisons in the United States. We have prisons in the United States for the worst of the worst. We spend money on it. The reason why we need to send them to Sikot or to El Salvador is quite simply because Trump doesn't want to be hemmed in by the law. And that when the president of the United States, when the strongest person in the country is saying things like, for example, I want to do this to U.S. criminals. I want to use it for U.S. citizens. I believe him. I believe that he wants to do that.
How about this, Pisco? You and I both know Guantanamo Bay. There are people that are being held there without due process. We're not losing sleep over that. I don't see the left. And that was done by
We's doing a lot of work.
Obama kept that when he said he campaigned, I'm going to shut down Guantanamo Bay, yet he still
he was wrong for it.
Derek Chauvin did nothing wrong, and he is held unjustly.
That's wrong.
I was waiting for that. I was going to say, don't these people even with George Floyd or whatever, they're not going to care about that.
That's wrong. But
Because they're going to say that he died of fentanyl.
that's wrong. But let's just. I want to ask you guys, if Trump sends U.S. citizens abroad to Sikot, you'd have a problem with that, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know about that. As a different form instead of using a U.S. prison?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's any different than our private prison industry that's a scam.
So
To send them to a prison.
This is the danger.
But why? They would never accept if Mexico or El Salvador or the reverse was happening, where they were trying to send their criminals here, and intentionally, knowingly, and making the U.S. foot the bill for keeping them imprisoned.
Danger.
Yeah. So
This is the problem with that, right? If Trump sends U.S. citizens abroad to Sikot, you'd have a problem with that, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know about that. As a different form instead of using a U.S. prison?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's any different than our private prison industry that's a scam.
So
To send them to a prison.
This is the danger.
Yeah. So
This is the danger. Trump is Trump is selling. Trump is testing.
And we got 2 minutes left, and then we're about to get into the debate. So go ahead.
Trump is testing this theory, and he's telling you in advance he wants to apply it to U.S. citizens. And just like Obama, one of the things I respect about Tim Pool is he's aware of the
Dumb as fuck in private prisons. They are still held accountable to human rights. CCOT is basically a concentration camp. Yeah. Not every human right, it's not enforced in the way that it should be, but it's like we're going in the wrong direction, saying that we should start normalizing this type of shit.
The kinds of violations that occurred under Rumsfeld, under the neocons, under Barack Obama, under Trump term 1, and that very same rationale that applied to Guantanamo Bay, that applied to the deprivations of due process in like Abu Ghraib, surely that applies to Trump version 2, and I don't see a kind of exceptional circumstance in this case that would justify breaking the law.
Also, Pisco needed to throw Obama under the bus. Obama breaking that promise was lame.
Trump Bay, that applied to the deprivations of due process in like Abu Ghraib, surely that applies to Trump version 2, and I don't see a kind of exceptional circumstance in this case that would justify breaking the law.
Well, before we go to the numbers, Will, do you want to take the last point?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I think the argument that this is ultimately going to lead to U.S. citizens deportation is just a really bad slippery slope argument. I don't think that's true. I think that there's so many other remedies that are available to U.S. citizens that it's not going to happen. I think that
you want to send U.S. citizens to CCOT? Who decides?
I mean, even once it does, though, they're already showing that they don't really care if that happens. I mean, we've already out of the 3 of them sitting here, you've already got one willing to be like, that doesn't really sound that bad, honestly.
Who decides? That's the question.
So even if it does, they're already primed to think, but who fucking cares? Because these people are criminals or whatever. So it's the worst of the worst. So they're not entitled to any human rights, due process, etc.
Do we just trust Trump and his Kash Patel to say who the terrorists are?
I think Pisco with any sort of prison. I mean.
Or like they don't get how like you really have to hold the line on these sorts of things, because it's like I'll grant that everything that Kilmar that he's accused of is true or whatever. These edge cases tend to be the most important to try to hold the line on, in the same way with like free speech, like let's say free speech of Nazis are violated, maybe people don't, do you know it's an injustice? Yes. Do you care as much as when it's something more righteous? Obviously you don't care as much, but that ends up being the most important speech to protect, the unpopular speech, not the easy stuff. And that's where you can tell where these people are drawing their lines in the sand, and like they don't really care.
I mean, there's levels of crime or decide.
But there's also levels of review, right? So
there is levels of
one
review.
One of the reasons why Tim, I think, in good faith, is against the death penalty is he understands the propensity for courts, yes, even courts with full review, to get shit wrong sometimes. In this case, I think that you should be fearful of a purely executive discretion on who is a terrorist sufficient to make a big hole in due process.
See, and here's where I want to make one last point, right? And this is why I think the slippery slope argument is bad. It'd be one thing if the Trump administration was hiding that it had made this administrative error from the beginning. But from the outset, from the very first filing in court, from the first declaration, the Trump administration was like, we made a mistake. It was an administrative error. He should have had his withholding removal lifted. So, he didn't fire the guy who made the declaration, right? He made the, he fired the attorney.
They suspended the guy who
I know, but he's leaving out that a top Trump advisor said Mr. Abrego Garcia had not been mistakenly deported. On April 14th, Stephen Miller, Mr. Trump's top domestic policy advisor, abruptly changed the administration's position on a critical fact in the case. He declared on Fox News and in the Oval Office that Mr. Abrego Garcia had not been wrongfully deported, blatantly contradicting other members of the administration. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador, Miller said, adding this was the right person to send to the right place. Until Mr. Miller's contradictory assertions, the idea that Mr. Abrego Garcia had been deported in error was not in dispute. So he is, selectively referencing positions of the administration that have already been, basically extinguished by these sorts of contradictory statements.
It. And
they suspended the attorney.
And Stephen Miller is saying it was a mistake. Stephen Miller's lying about the Supreme Court decision. And you agree that Trump could get him back if he wanted to.
You need due process to prove they're criminal. Otherwise, it's just accusations. Well, if I had to get into the MAGA mindset, they see it as these people are already criminals because they're here illegally. They don't. It's that's a starting premise, and then everything from there is like, well, who cares? They shouldn't even be here. Well, who cares? They shouldn't even be here. So who cares if they they're not entitled to anything? They're not actually Americans. So it's for U.S. citizens, they'll at least gesture to the idea that they're in support of innocent until proven guilty. But for these people, it's going to be guilty until proven innocent.
I mean, I think he could. I just don't. I think it's beyond the judicial power to order.
Whether it's beyond the judicial power to order, since you said it was unjust, why wouldn't you want him to right the wrong that you acknowledge?
Here's how I would have him do that, right? Like, and one of two ways. either a Zoom hearing or a hearing in the American Embassy in San Salvador.
That was-
right? You resolve the problem. You resolve the problem by just having the hearing to lift the withholding of removal.
But the Supreme Court said facilitate his release in release from custody in El Salvador.
Yeah, they said that, and it's like I think they're acting on a rush basis. They haven't been very.
Yeah, but you don't even know someone's legal status without due process. No, of course, but you know, this guy having a Mexican last name or Hispanic sounding last name is enough to say that he is.
Clear about what they mean by facilitate, and neither is Judge Zinnes, frankly. So I think the solution here is, whatever, while they're litigating what exactly facilitate means in this context, you just go ahead and handle the withholding of removal issue. He's going to lose on it.
And he's not, first of all, I just want to address it real quick because I want to address the issues of collateral estoppel and the issues and issue preclusion. That's a legal term of art, but for the lawyers who are eventually going to watch this, the bond hearing is only related to the issue of whether or not he's in the moment a danger to the community. It's not a finding of the court that is able to apply and have binding precedent on any other determination. Furthermore, the basic contours of due process and collateral estoppel require there to be vigorous process where the issues were really held. They didn't have the opportunity to cross-examine any of the witnesses. An anonymous witness on two forms, one of which is like blatantly wrong and contradictory. They said they picked him up for murder, and so the issue of collateral estoppel, there's no collateral estoppel.
I mean, I think in the context of an immigration proceeding, I think it would, you can't suddenly take a criminal standard.
Okay, that's 30 minutes, but we'll let you wrap
Thank you,
it
guys.
up.
So, and then just the second issue with holding, it's clear under the regulations and under the due process clause, you are allowed to bring up, if just as the burden of the proof is going to be on the government to show that the country conditions have changed so that Barrio 18 is like no longer a threat because Bukele is just Superman or whatever, he's going to have additional opportunities to argue other withholding arguments, one of which is, now that he's been identified by Bukele by name, he has a very strong argument that he's going to be actually a target of persecution by Bukele and the administration and the state, which I think is actually a stronger argument than the Barrio 18 argument.
Let's roll.
All right, guys, now let's get it on. That was our introductory debate. You guys kind of got your palate, Well, now we need the palate cleanse. You got your little taste of what tonight's going to be about. So, guys, what's going to happen is that we're going to pick people up. We're going to kind of mix it up. So first, we're going to start with Donnie Dossie. But Donnie, what's going to happen is you're going to come up here. You're going to get a minute uninterrupted to talk about whatever prompt you want. We have this prompt. We're just going to use because you're the first one. And then after you make that argument, then you're going to come up here, and that's when we're going to have the back and forth dialogue. So you got 1 minute, and then hopefully just give us your best 1 minute elevator pitch on your topic and why you think you're right. Then you get the 4 minutes back and forth. You get to freaking argue with the most famous
And if we like
guy
you, stay. But if you suck,
on
I'm going to
YouTube.
kick you out.
If I suck, I suck.
And so your 1 minute starts. Let me get the timer out. So
Just go for it. He'll start it.
Yeah,
Okay.
ready, set, debate, or say your topic.
So
I bet this room smells great.
this withholding of removal thing that I keep hearing about. Granted, I admit I'm not a lawyer or anything. I also, I didn't actually read the Supreme Court ruling or anything. But my understanding of the withholding of removal is this makes it illegal for them to have deported Garcia to El Salvador. It did not grant him permanent residency within the United States, and it also did not outlaw ability to deport him to another country. So I'm kind of confused on where the confusion. Okay, I get it. A mistake was made. He was accidentally deported to El Salvador. So what happens from that point? We go ahead and we bring him back. How do we bring him back? What if Bukele isn't willing to relinquish him to us? How do we go about getting him back? Are we supposed to send him to the military and go take him by force and bring him back here just so that way we can detain him and deport him again anyways? None of that makes sense to me.
Yeah!
That's kind of my point.
All right,
Come on up, and then we can tell you why you're wrong.
I mean, that's my position too.
You take these strong stances on things that they don't even seem to know the basic facts about.
Mostly. So nice to meet you.
Well, let's roll. I mean, what was
Sure.
wrong?
Happy. First of all, thank you guys. I know that we disagree on stuff, but I really appreciate y'all coming here. I think
Again, that guy was imprisoned without trial in a max security Salvadoran prison.
it's a really important topic, due process, and so I think it's awesome for.
If I can say real quick,
And he had never been convicted of a crime in this country or that country, but imprisoned nonetheless.
kudos to you, man.
Thank
Big
you.
balls. Big balls. Come up here, go up against these three, and an entire room of people that are opposing you. That's strong.
Okay, you don't need to kiss his ass.
No, I
Let's
appreciate it.
go.
So I think the first, I'm going to deal in reverse order. The first thing is well, how can we actually get that done? I think everyone, if they're being honest with themselves, because you guys are honest people, should admit that Trump could, if he wanted to, get Kilmar Garcia back. He recently, as this week, said he could get him back. So we believe in terms of practicality, the president of the United States could get him back, right?
I mean, I concede he could because he does have a lot of sway, and Bukele.
So you
wants to
agree
work
with that,
him.
right?
He wants to work with him, but then at the same time, this also keeps Bukele in the spotlight.
Yeah, I
And
know.
he likes being in the spotlight.
But let's not talk about questions of could. Let's talk about questions of should, because I don't really think that you can make a strong argument that he couldn't.
I don't really think
Actually-
that he needs to waste his time on it.
Well, hang on, I just want to give Will an opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think my
Oh
point
my
is
God.
that there's Article 2 prerogatives that he actually does need to protect. And so in a world where Article 3 is sort of in this vague game of trying to order him to return him,
This is
I
a
would
good point.
say no.
So I want to give Will his credit because it is the case. There are, as the Supreme Court held, limits, Article 3 limits on their ability to infringe on the Article 2 prerogatives. And I agree with some of these. If the Supreme Court said to Trump, hey, you have to go send in spec ops to take this guy out, I would think that that's unconstitutional for them to order that. So I do agree that there are some limits here, but that's a question of whether the court can order the remedy, not a question about what Trump could do.
Well, no, because there's an odd element to this too, and I think that you're a lie.
He likes being in the spotlight. This is the type of analysis you'd find on The View. These people are voting also.
The odd argument is that in a world where the Supreme Court is attempting to encroach on his power with vague orders, and Trump accedes to it, that sets a precedent for what the court can do going forward. And so, I mean, and since we're in this area of like core Article 2 power, why I think, I think Trump should do, as I said, I think the remedy here is this hearing in El Salvador. But I think Trump should resist any sort of attempt to say, oh, you're ordering me to negotiate with the Salvadoran government to bring him back. I'm not going to do that until you give that up.
We also need to address what it means to, what the phrase could bring him back means. And this would mean that Trump would need to negotiate with Bukele to some degree. And I also believe it's fair to say that while Trump could bring him back, the resistance is going to be tremendous. Bukele is going to have to concede to his nation. I have released an MS-13 gang member because I was pressured by a foreign country.
That's right.
So
Correct.
Trump could
Also
get him
a
back,
good point.
but Trump's going to have to come in like, here's what we'll give you.
But he wouldn't have to do that because the evidence that this guy was even involved with MS-13 is so like shoddy. It was literally based on hearsay.
We'll give you this, we'll give you that. Things that the Supreme Court can't order him to guarantee.
Bukele has like what, 90% approval in El Salvador? I've had a client from El Salvador before, and I don't want to underplay
Because
the
he's
gang.
hard on them.
What's that?
Because he's hard on crime. He's hard on gang.
So I want to be clear. Like my client that I once had, he was absolutely a victim to the gang violence. It was endemic and it was just unlivable in El Salvador. So I don't want to underplay the degree to which gang violence matters. It absolutely does. But he is not. His.
That's true. Despite controversies and negative press coverage, Bukele remains extremely popular with approval ratings consistently hovering between 80 and 90%. He is considered to be one of the most popular presidents in El Salvador's history, as well as one of the most popular incumbent Latin American heads of state.
Approval rating, is to the max. The notion that he would face some kind of humongous.
And the very second that he softens on that, his approval rating is going to go down.
You don't think he's like, okay?
Now they're just conceding that really they haven't said anything about Trump, but he's victim to the same, or like he's beholden to the same sorts of like interests of his constituency. That now we're arguing, oh, he shouldn't have to do that, or they shouldn't do that, or they won't do that because of political pressure, not really anything to do with like the facts of the matter.
We gave it back because we want to make a relationship with the president. That's not going to affect his approval rating. That's going to come on. This is all a joke. If Trump wanted him back,
Pisco, I want to do some Socratic dialogue with you because you did a lot earlier. Yes. So let's do some Socratic dialogue. Imagine a different hypothetical. Let's imagine a world where the United States had an illegal member of La Cosa Nostra in detention. Yep. And somehow he had managed to acquire withholding removal from an immigration judge. Maybe that information got hidden about him being in La Cosa Nostra or whatever. Okay, got a withholding removal to Italy.
So like Italy.
Okay, the Italy hypothetical.
I was about to say this is like a mafia reference.
And then,
That's 4 minutes, Donnie. Dude,
Let's. Any final thoughts before we go?
But Donnie, you spent a minute of it kissing Pisco's ass.
I shouldn't be kissing his ass. I was just trying to talk about, I'm impressed that he got up here, but at the same time, he's
Well,
wrong
we're impressed
all
that
around.
you're here,
That's
too.
where I'm at.
But I do agree. I do tremendously respect you being here, man. This is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we do appreciate it. Okay, now, guys, obviously, no, thank you, Donnie. Great job. And so, guys, you're going to be able to come up here. So try to interject a little bit. I know, Donnie, it's tough being the first one, so don't beat yourself up. You actually did a good job. Thank you. You're the virgin. We just, you took our virginity. So thank you. Well, Alex Jones, we're about to get into Alex Jones, but it's funny because we're getting heckled by, let's be real, guys, this is a sausage fest, it is. But we do have a few ladies here. So next up, I want one of those beautiful ladies from the
Undoubtedly the wives of one of these fucking men that was dragged to this.
audience to come on down. So do we have a lady that wants to come up here? Do we have a lady? Yeah, come on. Come on. Yes, come on, get up there. You have to come up, yeah. If you're here, guys, you're susceptible to being chosen and get up there. So just say anything. Just come up for a minute. If you suck
Thank you for subscribing.
for the minute, you get kicked off. You don't have a choice. Just come up here. Don't be scared. You're going to go viral. You got Tim Pool.
Let's try. Let's just a second
Oh
time.
my
Come on.
gosh. Okay, well, if you're gonna be a chicken, well, listen. You came here. You put on that dress. You wanted to be seen. Let's see it.
Let's grab who we have.
All right. So all right. Let's go
Yeah, I'm sure heckling this woman really makes her want to rush to the front.
with somebody that's different. Is here? We got a in the audience. No. Okay.
He wanted to be here.
What about? Do we have a in the audience? All right. No. What about a? Do we have a in the audience?
What are they saying?
None of that. Is there anybody that's liberal or has a different viewpoint than us that wants to come up here?
Well, it's different, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, then you come up here. What's your name?
Stork is what people call it.
Stork. Okay. Did you submit? Did you do an official submission? Okay, I'll find it. So,
Well, go for it.
you got your 1 minute.
Let him deal the timer and let's see what you got.
Yeah, if I can get it in before he gets the timer going. Okay, so I believe he is slightly wrong. I believe you are mostly correct. And I believe all of this is a fact that they denied him his Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial when he was denied essentially all of the processing that would have been needed when he had the stay of deportation. So he should have been sent to another place. In addition to that, most of immigration is actually screwed up because we have not filed a writ of mandamus against the federal government for not processing all of these people who are stuck in immigration limbo for 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they should be doing their job and getting them the hell out of the country.
Oh,
I think
come on down. Take a seat.
Come on down.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
take a
don't.
seat.
Sixth Amendment doesn't apply. It's not
I don't think the Sixth Amendment applies.
So it's not a Sixth Amendment
Because
issue.
it's a civil removal.
And you can't get a writ of mandamus. Number one is these judges are executive branch officials. So
You can get a federal writ of
you sure can't get rid of a mandamus against executive branch officials, but right now they're all under Trump, and so if Trump could just order them to do whatever you want the writ of mandamus to do,
That's democracy.
Yeah, but
Straighterade, are you gonna fight Hunter Avalone at Creator Clash 3? Yes, don't tell anyone, but I've been this is a exclusive, you guys. I've been training so I can battle Hunter Avalone in person at the local gym in Tampa.
But all I mean is to say is I think that this is properly understood as a due process issue.
If the writ of mandamus was actually filed under the previous administration, then they would be obligated to do what it is they need to do.
It's not at a gym. This Creator Clash thing is not at a gym in Tampa. It's like at an arena.
It's all I mean is to say is I think that this is properly understood as a due process issue.
If the writ of mandamus was actually filed under the previous administration, then they would be obligated to do what it is they need to do.
That sounds like it's the Article 3 judges encroaching on the executive branch prerogatives.
Yeah, I think it actually, and in this context, it probably would be because we actually, this is, I agree. Yeah, there's an Article 2 prerogative.
I was like, what the hell is a writ of mandamus? A court order compelling a government official or body to perform a specific duty that they are legally required to perform or to refrain from performing an action they are legally forbidden from doing. It's essentially a we command order issued by the court.
To manage immigration and enforce immigration laws. You can fail to enforce to such a degree that it would be mandamusable by somebody, but then there's all sorts of other questions.
I want to cut a deal real quick with Democrats. Yeah. I will advocate for the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to this country for his hearing if we also simultaneously get a hearing on the extrajudicial assassinations Barack Obama committed.
Wait, let's talk about that.
The same thing actually. So, writ of mandamus for it.
So let's talk about that because.
Didn't Biden deport more people than Trump? I don't know if it was I believe there were certain years that he did, but I don't know if it ended up being in totality that he had.
You might think, and I understand this point. First of all, he was a U.S. citizen, right? That's number one, and he was
But it wouldn't surprise me because Democrats are terrible on immigration right now.
killed. Lucky of all.
Writ of mandamus for it.
So let's talk about that because you might think, and I understand this point. First of all, he was a U.S. citizen, right? That's number one. And he was killed. Al-Awlaki, right? Is that what you're talking about?
So Anwar al-Awlaki is a great example, but Abdul Rahman is a better example.
Okay. Talk about that case.
Abdul Rahman is was a 16-year-old American citizen, was not a part of any terror organizations. The Obama administration ordered a drone strike on a civilian cafe in Yemen, a country we're not at war with, blowing it up, killing a bunch of people, including him, and they've admitted to it. Yep. I would I don't think you necessarily disagree with me. That's why I said Democrats. I'm not directing at you. I know that if I went to Democratic politicians and said, you see this as an injustice, I believe that in the end the courts will prevail as a
I don't trust anything Temple says. Killing of Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, 16-year-old United States citizen who was killed by a U.S. drone strike in Yemen. He was the son of somebody else. His father was a leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. He was killed by a CIA drone strike several days before his son's death. The U.S. drone strike that killed him was conducted under a policy approved by U.S. President Barack Obama. Two U.S. officials speaking on condition of anonymity stated that the target of the October 14, 2011 airstrike was this guy, Abraham al-Banna, an Egyptian believed to be a senior operative in Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Another U.S. administration official speaking on condition of anonymity described him as a bystander who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, stating the U.S. government did not know that Mr. al-Awlaki's son was there before the airstrike was ordered. When pressed by a reporter to defend the targeted killing policy that resulted in his death, former White House press secretary Robert Gibbs deflected blame to the victim's father. I would suggest that you should have a far more responsible father if they are truly concerned concerned about the well-being of their children. I don't think becoming an al-Qaeda jihadist terrorist is the best way to go about doing your business. Human rights group questioned why he was killed by the U.S. in a country with which the U.S. is not at war. Jamil Jaffer, deputy legal director of the ACLU, stated, if the government is going to be firing Predator missiles at American citizens, surely the American public has a right to know who's being targeted and why. Oh, for one simple summary was not that wrong.
Pertains to Abrego Garcia, so I'm willing to say, okay, let's spend that money, but you got to give me something. Yeah, let's have Justice Obama goes to prisons.
The only reason that I would say that's a problem is I believe.
Like, they literally called Obama and Biden supporter in chief. Yeah, but like, that was actually something I've been corrected on, because my understanding was that Obama and Biden had deported more people than like Republican presidents and Trump. But when you, it's like there's something that I don't know what it is, like that the stat that's often cited to say that that's true is either inflated or is like the definition of what counted as a deportation had changed, and things that people wouldn't consider like a deportation ended up being included. Including Title 42 deportations, Biden had almost 3 times as many as Trump. That I wouldn't be surprised by, because this was stuff related to COVID, right?
I believe there's a statute of limitations on what it is you can file a writ of mandamus for. And
is there a statute of limitations on murder?
I don't think there is in this case, but when you're talking about military actions or something like that, there may...
But he's not talking about specific writ. He's just saying in general.
A writ of mandamus, you sue the government essentially for inaction, and that's what the problem is. We have to...
But he's not talking about a particular remedy. He's saying, I'm willing to publicly support X in exchange for Democrats giving them...
Yeah, and so I will also concede there's probably, and you guys are lawyers probably know this better than me, some kind of immunity Obama has where he's going to say, this was a military strike with intelligence. We didn't intend to kill an American, but we did. So he may have some immunity from criminal prosecution.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to win a...
No, that's fine. I think you can still get wrongful death or something like that.
I mean, he probably has like
the
president has absolutely... I mean, you would have like a civil suit against the government.
You could. They tried it.
Unfortunately, I don't know if he has any surviving family members left because they also killed them.
Indeed. No, but my argument in the long form is actually impeach him, convict him, and then... Now that he's no longer immune, you go after.
But the court has already, so in the Trump versus United States case, which I totally disagree with.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Impeach him first.
Yeah.
Convict him in the impeachment.
Yeah.
Which he's no longer immune to the murder.
So the Supreme Court specifically rejected that impeachment judgment clause argument in Trump versus United States. So there's a couple arguments. So one was the inherent structure of the Constitution makes it that you have certain degrees of absolute immunity for core executive acts that are part of your core executive powers. But there was an argument additionally that Trump said that, well, I'm not immune under those theories, or alternatively, I'm
Thank you for the follow.
immune until you impeach and remove me. That's under the impeachment judgment clause, but the Supreme Court unanimously held that that was not the case. So you don't need to impeach someone to trigger criminal immunity and remove them. That's been rejected. But it's a good question. Would I support a hearing that looks at the executive power and its use on U.S. citizens when they get killed? Absolutely.
All right, that's 4 minutes. So Stork, thank you. Anything you want to say before you go? All right, give it up for Stork. Now, guys, when you come up, you got 1 minute. Make sure to get on the mic. Okay, now this next guy.
Why don't we just have them, if we don't know, like some people did or didn't show up, why don't we have them raise their hands and then see who is prepared to come on?
Okay, well, I know this guy's here because this guy's insane. I love this guy. No, I want to call up David Tiny Flora. So, David, come on down. Tiny, it's your turn. Come on down, Tiny.
Oh, he's coming.
Tiny, come on. Yeah, give it up for Tiny. He's not exactly that tiny, I'll tell you that much. The man's huge. He's built like a damn refrigerator. Look at him. Come in here, sir. Now get up on that mic. You know how to get up on things. Come on. We want to hear you. Maybe make it taller.
You can pick the mic up and take it with you.
Damn.
For fuck's sake, though, the whole but Obama, but Biden shit is so exhausting. And this isn't the stream for you, because I have a lot of criticisms of those two presidents. We see through the Obama and Biden worship at this stream, unfortunately.
All right, you got 1 minute
for my live viewers, but the stuff that Trump is doing is like obviously more egregious, but it doesn't absolve them from criticism, in my opinion.
On that thing for you, Alex.
And I think it can be important to talk about those things, because you can talk about like how some of these things were precursors to what's going on, or like ways that, you know, things that people didn't object to because the president who was doing them had a D next to their name, and then the same stuff happens under Trump, and people can see, why is this happening? Why are they doing this? And then they're surprised to learn, oh, this is a thing that both Democrats and Republicans have been doing or do.
$20.
No, I'm not gay. I don't play that way. Maybe Pisco.
$20, bro.
Yeah, well, I'm worth a lot more. I'm a pimp on a blend, dude. You know what I mean? I don't need $20. But let's, you got 1 minute. What do you want to say, Tony?
All right, so what I wanted to discuss, you guys actually touched on it briefly.
Sorry, you can just get closer to the mic.
Yeah, hold on.
So what I wanted to discuss, and you guys actually talked about it or touched on it briefly, was actually the, I guess, sale of U.S. citizens to private prison industry in the United States, and how that would be any different than selling U.S. citizens to CCOT, for example. I believe that there's already a precedent that's set in the United States where we do pass or sell inmates along, from my personal knowledge working as a corrections officer for a few years. And I believe that it would be as simple as creating a territory or creating CCOT, creating a territory within CCOT that is ran by the BOP.
I think it's a wonderful question.
All right,
and
sit
so
down.
for those who didn't hear, he asked, what about the comparison to private prisons, the fact that we outsource and contract private entities to take on the responsibility of the government, specifically with incarceration of individuals, both of, for crimes and immigration.
Wait, but Pisco, I want to say, I'm more surprised at a guy with prison
And the BOP is the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
tattoos was that eloquent. I mean, I
Very
can't
eloquent.
believe that. Where did that?
Are
Where
you
did
in
that?
MS-13?
Where did you come
Sorry,
from?
I'm seeing those.
Oh, yeah,
meth
yeah,
He's
tattoos.
got the skull.
Again, these people like moving in the wrong direction. They see like private prisons and they are like, what are ways that we could expand this or export this? Or like, what are other iterations that we could get going instead of being like, wow, we shouldn't have private prisons in the first place.
Dang, the marijuana leaf. I mean, man, dude,
That's so funny.
that's gangster.
That's the
as hell.
M, right?
It's a great question.
The underside's actually the fireman's prayer.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, but you do have a weed flower on your arm, though,
True,
right?
that's the M.
Most
That's the
definitely.
M.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hey, talk into the mic. We want to hear you, Tiny. Okay, your clock starts
Yes,
now.
sir.
So yeah, go
It's a
ahead. Sorry,
fantastic thing to say because I think it's all fours. It's exactly the comparison. Bukele is being used as a contractor, and that plays into my argument and the argument of the plaintiffs, which is Bukele is not exercising the sovereign power of El Salvador by keeping Abrego Garcia in detention. He is being contracted by the U.S. government to hold him. Now, I know there's
That's
an
just
argument.
not true,
There's an
though.
argument that like, they're only paying money for the Venezuelan.
Trader, do you have a Zionist handler? No, I only have a Mossad handler.
That's all a fugazi. It's all a lie. Obviously he's working at the behest of the U.S.
Hold
government.
on, more Socratic dialogue.
Go for it.
If under normal circumstances, Joe Biden had sent back a Salvadoran gang member,
Yep.
illegal alien, to Bukele, right? And say there was some financial arrangement even between Bukele,
Yep.
not necessarily related to this particular person, but there was a financial arrangement. Is then suddenly, if there's some problem, is he able to demand that he be sent back to the United States?
So I think that there's an existing contractual relationship, an existing constructive custody, you would argue, that this person is continuing.
I hear you. I agree. But MAGA people never cared in the first place, though. None of what Obama did or Biden did ever mattered to these people until it became something convenient for them to defend Trump with. Oh, if you're talking about like how much does it need to be like brought up or whatever in the context of like these conversations, it just depends. It just depends.
It's not like one and done event. It's why is this person in? I don't actually think he's in Sikot anymore. I think they transferred
Yeah,
him
they transferred
someplace else. But like, why is he in custody in the first place? Is he being in custody because he's being charged with a crime by Bukele? Is he being? Why is he in fact in prison? And the truth is, or in wherever he is, it's because he's acting at the behest of America, and everyone kind of knows it. And the fact that we all kind of acknowledge.
Because like I think the point that it would be useful to bring up disagreements that Pisco or myself had with Obama and Biden era like immigration policies and stuff like that would be to demonstrate like these people will sometimes bring up like, oh, Obama was the deporter in chief, like they'll say stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but why are you they'll almost make it sound like a bad thing, and then in the next breath they'll defend everything that Trump is doing related to immigration. So I'm not so interested in being buddy with somebody who's just invoking that in bad faith or to get a gotcha when it's something that they don't care about genuinely, unless I thought I could demonstrate like, why are you using this to malign Obama? But when it comes to Trump, if you think that what Obama was doing was bad, or you were going to criticize him on that basis, then how could you defend what Trump's doing?
Well,
I don't think that's true
I
at
have
all.
a question for you, Pisco. What is the legal process for imprisoning someone in El Salvador?
I don't know. What is that process?
Me neither.
It seems very.
We don't
I don't
know.
why you're
it
bringing
seems
up a
bare
foreign
bones.
country's criminal justice system for their own citizens.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the internal domestic process in El Salvador?
Yes.
Yeah, it's at the whims of the dictator.
So, are there other dictators that you're concerned about in other parts of the world
100% I am. Yes,
that
I
you
am.
don't frequently debate about?
Well, I don't frequently debate about it when it.
I don't think we have to be so chauvinist to assume that every country's, process system being different, especially El Salvador, which has had 30 years of gang violence, for them to be like, no, sorry, you have gang tattoos, you're going to jail.
But I don't even think we need to argue that, because I think that there is a moral worldview difference between us, and I don't mean this disrespectfully.
Sure,
in
sure.
that
Why is that framed as paternalism?
are there other dictators that you're concerned about in other parts of the world
100% I am. Yes, I am.
you don't frequently debate about?
Well, I don't frequently debate about it when it.
I don't think we have to be so chauvinist to assume that every country's, process system being different, especially El Salvador, which has had 30 years of gang violence, for them to be like, no, sorry, you have gang tattoos, you're going to jail.
But I don't even.
Why is that chauvinist to criticize that? If there are countries that are not abiding by like basic human rights, you know, I don't really care what, you know, or like it wouldn't make a difference to me that they've had 30 years of gang violence or whatever. It's like, yes, I can understand that, but it could still like not justify that, you know?
I don't even think we need to argue that, because I think that
like if something's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right.
there is a moral worldview difference between us. And I don't mean this disrespectfully in that my view is, hey, we're America. We take care of America. If El Salvador's being shitty, I mean, that's El Salvador. And this guy's their citizen in their country. If they decide to put him in prison, that's not our fucking problem.
Yeah, but you're ignoring the process of how he got there and how. Yeah,
it's so. Again, if you know, I asked this of Christy Nome, can we just give him his hearing and be done with it, because we know that in the end we are correct? And her response was, it's out of our jurisdiction now anyway.
So I have a question to kind of bring it back to what we were discussing here, right? I think we kind of went a little further.
Sure.
So we already run programs very similar here in the United States, like with the 187G program. Sheriff Chuck Jenkins up in Frederick County, Maryland, has been running that for many years now, and has been very successful prior to the Trump
in the United States, right?
Very correct.
I agree.
But my
The 187G program, also known as the 287G program, is a joint program between the U.S., between ICE and state or local law enforcement agencies. It allows local law enforcement to enforce certain federal immigration laws within their jurisdiction under the oversight of ICE.
point is, those inmates, he is being compensated by the United States government to house them in a special wing. His deputies are deputized as federal marshals or federal agents. Why would it be any different if we rented out a wing in CCOT and sent inmates there? No differently than what we do now.
Well, two things. One is, I think that your description of that relationship is completely correct. I think that's exactly what's happening with Bukele there, in the sense that, yes, the U.S. government is contracting a party to enforce immigration law. The reason why it's different is the deprivation for which due process applies is the physical removal from the country. And so when you deport him to another place, you've now done the deprivation for which there is due process. And so that's my answer to that is, in theory, I guess I wouldn't have a problem with the law of contracting like some foreigner. I don't like it, but legally I don't know if that's a problem.
That's your time.
I just want to point out real quick, this guy right here is a Maryland man with knuckle tattoos.
Yeah. What do you do for a living, Tiny? What do you do? Do you mind saying? What do you do?
No comment.
Damn. That means he sells weed is what that means. All right. Now, actually,
I mean, you said he used to work in corrections, right?
Got some information that, even though it is a little bit of a sausage party, that I think we have a lady with the courage to step up to the microphone. So with that being said, yeah, I'm okay. I said lady.
That's gratuitous.
Now, with all that being said, let's welcome the one, the only, and Dr. Nate. Give it a round of applause, guys. Come on.
Thank you. Oh my God, it is such a fucking sausage party. Also, I want to say you're pissing me off, Pisco. But I'm gonna try to say this without getting angry. Okay. If Kilmar comes back...
You're talking to the mic. Sorry. You're talking real close to the mic.
Can you hear me?
Hold up. Take it off, because we're recording this. So we can't use you if we can't hear. So talk to the mic.
Thank you, T-Bone. So, all right. First of all, this guy's name is Kilmar. Like, he sounds fucking crazy. Like, it's frightening as fuck. Okay.
I mean, he is, like, just demonstrably.
Uninterrupted. Let her talk.
Are you from Maryland?
No.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Maryland. Shout out to Maryland. Woo! Shout out to the East Coasters in here. All right, let me tell you something about MS-13. All right, if this guy comes back, he's going to be beating his wife, beating others, and back to the bullshit. All the trafficking, everything he's up to that, is alleged, he's going to be back on his bullshit and even bigger.
She admits that it's alleged. She admits that it's alleged. Again, never been charged nor convicted of a crime, neither in the U.S. or El Salvador.
I don't think, I'll speak for myself, but I don't think my community wants or desires to bring those characters back. We are extremely happy for their deportations, and we are extremely happy that he can't come back, that he's trapped in El Salvador.
All right, come on, guys, great job.
I was waiting for a question like this because this strikes at the moral perspective, not the fact-based legal perspective. And so there's this air of the
ends justify the means. It's fine because the ends justify the means. Fine because there's one less fucking, Hispanic dude in the country.
Can't deport people like this because it's a slippery slope that results in injustice elsewhere. That strikes at a procedural, legal, slippery slope, a lot of things. But it doesn't ask the moral questions a community wants answered. In that, if this was the 1800s, they'd have thrown this motherfucker out of town.
He would have been lynched.
And if he came back...
He would have been lynched.
But it's not the 1800s. It's 2025. Why do we want to go back to those times?
They would have fucking killed this guy if he came back. I don't want that to happen to anybody. But the point is, the way communities treat people who wrong them
Because in 1800s, he would have been not given any due process, thrown in jail, killed, or whatever. Anything better than that, you know, you really can't complain, you guys.
There is a question there. So I appreciate what you're asking about the moral question. What's the answer there?
We hate it. Okay, go ahead. No.
So you brought up the lynching. I just want to say, because I think that's an interesting point. I think there is a moral dimension to procedural questions, but I'm going to ignore it for the purpose of this because I do think that, I don't know if you guys ever watched The Hateful Eight. It's my favorite Tarantino movie, and one of the
Pisco L. Lycan really likes that one too for some reason.
Character says that's frontier justice, and that's frontier justice. And the reason why we don't agree with that on a moral dimension is you're just as likely, you're likely to be wrong sometimes. And so here's my question for you: is Kilmar Abrego Garcia innocent until proven guilty of the crimes that the media is alleging him of doing?
He doesn't get to be judged by those terms because he's not a citizen of the United States.
So I just want to be clear. Do you believe that either it is the case or it ought to be the case that non-U.S. citizens should not have trials for the crimes they're accused of?
I think that what you're referencing is like a waste of our money. So we should not be, there's no reason to bring him here, do all this.
Okay, they'll say this, but they don't realize just how fucking expensive all of this bullshit is. How expensive it is to deport people in this way, how expensive it is to keep kids in cages. They don't realize like the gargantuan costs associated with all of this stuff. Like there have been studies, they've literally found that it is cheaper to house people that are here like awaiting like immigration trials and whatnot or whatever, just like processing like stuff. It is cheaper to actually put them up in hotels than it is to keep them in some of these cages and stuff and these detention centers. But of course that's not going to happen because it's not really about the money. It's about like maximal suffering for some of these people.
Bullshit. We've paid enough in Maryland. Okay.
So is the answer no? You don't think non-citizens should get trials for their crimes?
That's a loaded question. Why is it loaded? Why is it loaded? Because the issue is, should somebody who lives in this country, permanent resident, versus an illegal immigrant adjudicated as MS-13, whose penalty is deportation. Right. Here's the point. If someone comes here and breaks the law, and the end result is going to be deportation, how do...
Also, this entire line of argumentation refusing to answer that, I mean, it just kind of like exposes the lie of like, oh, I'm fine with immigration. These people just need to do it the right way. And then you got people trying to do it the right way. And then when even that is interfered with, it's like, oh, well, fuck it. He shouldn't have been here in the first place. So there really is no right way.
Do we have a trial for them when they're gone? Why force them to stay here if we're going to remove them anyway? So,
these are people who hate America, hate our community. They hate abiding by the law. They hate us. They hate U.S. citizens, and they just mooch and mooch and mooch while literally terrorizing our community and tearing us apart. They're like agent provocateurs.
Well, let me ask you a question.
And even that's not true because immigrants are found to commit less crime than native. I don't want to say Native Americans, but natural born U.S. citizens.
Do you believe that an illegal immigrant should get their due process?
Like she's talking about like, oh, I don't want this guy in my community or whatever. It's a great community. It's like, lady, if you want crime to like just absolutely plummet in your community, we should just start deporting men. That'll make crime go away. Most crime is perpetuated by men in the United States. Can make that happen real fast.
That doesn't mean jury trial. It means the standard legal process that is fair under the law for determining whether they're a citizen.
No, I mean, yeah. I think no, in that the original crime being that they came to.
That doesn't mean jury trial. It means the standard legal process that is fair under the law for determining whether they're a citizen.
No, I mean, yeah. I think no, in that the original crime being that they came to this country illegally.
But that's what I'm asking you. The due process.
Not a crime.
I'm asking if you would accept is a man is walking down the street, the cops stop him. The due process here is we must determine if he's a citizen or not. Should they do that?
They should determine if he's a citizen or not.
Under what process? Who do you trust to determine who's a citizen?
No, and these types of rules always end up being unconstitutional because if you're going to ask people, are you a U.S. citizen or not? It's unambiguously going to be unequally applied. They're going to almost exclusively ask people that are non-white those questions. They will not think to ask white people that are white passing, white presenting, are you a U.S. citizen? It will be assumed. If you're a Mexican, they're going to be bothering you with these questions. If you're Indian, they're going to be bothering you with these questions. If you're Korean, they're going to be bothering you with these questions.
Border Patrol. I actually got pulled over by Border Patrol recently, and they did a great job.
Here's the problem. When you put a hole in due process, this is why I don't agree with these categorical exceptions. Once you put one hole in due process, now the government, just by their own discretion, is going to put everyone they don't like in that hole.
If you have nothing, no. If you have nothing to hide, you should have
that's
no
classic
fucking...
neocon language.
What the fuck
classic
are you
neocon
talking about?
language.
If you have
classic
nothing
Patriot
to hide,
Act language.
being pulled over by Border Patrol shouldn't be frightening.
What makes America great, right, is our structure, our Constitution, our way of life. So one of the people will often bring up to me the Carter Page FISA warrants that the Department of Justice got on Carter Page. You guys remember this, the Russiagate stuff, right? Those Carter Page warrants were wrongfully obtained. And you guys cared about them. Why do you care about them? You care about them because you don't want the government to intrude. This isn't even a matter of detention. It's not a matter of execution. I assume that you care. It's called a rhetorical. It's called, hey, dipshit. It's called a rhetorical question.
Bro, you gotta come up.
Hey, dipshit. It's called a rhetorical question. Hey, dipshit. It's called a rhetorical question. You ever heard of it? Wait. So yes or no? Yes or no? Have you ever heard of a rhetorical question? Dipshit. But yes or no? Have you heard of a rhetorical question?
Wait. We will ask you to come up because
that's 4 minutes for Dr. Nate.
Let's wrap up. If you've got a little bit more because we kind of went off. Just if you.
No, seriously though, what do you say, Pisco, to the communities in Silver Spring, Gaithersburg, these communities who have for the last 40 years been inundated with these illegal immigrants and dreamers?
Freedom. This is what I say. I say freedom isn't free. Every time we give a trial, every time we give a trial to someone who's an accused rapist, an accused murderer, it costs the state and the people of Maryland a lot of money. But the reason we do that is when we don't, we live at the discretion. When we don't, we live at the discretion of the state, and you shouldn't be government bootlicking shills that just trust the government to do everything you want.
And while I can agree with the government shill stuff, what I will say is it's the only thing I heard there was it's not in my fucking backyard, so I don't give a shit.
That is bullshit. That is complete bullshit.
Bro,
it's a cop out.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you.
But it is because this stuff is, oh God, it is because this. I get so angry. I can't.
You guys, something I shouldn't fucking say. I've got property in the area with MS-13 now trying to occupy it. I had to fucking contact the FBI. And so I've got these liberals who don't live here, who don't know that they're gun.
He was just like histrionic.
Contact the FBI. And so I've got these liberals who don't live here, who don't know that there are gunshots, that there are people running scared, and they're saying, bring this guy back. Now, I'm a pause. I don't want false warrants or bullshit. The reason why I asked about due process under the law is for an illegal immigrant, if they're stopped, like you guys stopped by CBP, the law as it is now is an officer makes a determination if they're a citizen or not, and they have expedited removal, I believe, within 2 years. And I was talking to Myron Gaines about this the other day. He was an ICE agent. He says, often we lock them up, get a plane, they send them home.
But that's
the due process. That's the due process. Real quick, we don't need a criminal trial after we say get the fuck out.
Wait.
Exactly.
When did you hear me? I just want to be clear. When did you hear me say that we need a trial? In fact, I went and I said JD Vance is a fucking liar because he says we're asking for trials. What you just talked about, this proceeding in front of a judge, and really for expedited removal, it's usually like not even default a judge. It's just an immigration.
Autumn is catching me straight tonight. The woman who said you shouldn't be scared, but they're detaining U.S. citizens in these facilities too. That's why when like Tim is saying like, this is not our problem or whatever, it's like the first 30 minutes of this 40 minutes was dedicated to how it was already having implications for U.S. citizens.
Agreed. So right. We're not talking here about a ton of due process.
And I agree with you on that.
So all we're talking about here are minimum standards. They didn't even, they didn't give a notice before they left. They're trying to say that
you're
you
saying
give
freedom isn't free, but you want them to stay here on our dime.
So it's costly, right? Having freedom is
what the fuck? Nobody wants
you understand
to
this.
pay that.
You understand this. Freedom is costly. The freedom of speech is costly. The freedom to bear, have guns.
Then make El Salvador pay.
Right? But what is Trump doing? Trump is not making El Salvador pay. Trump is paying El Salvador. Trump is paying El Salvador when really he is entitled under our own law, right? Congress passes a law. Congress passes the Immigration Nationality Act, and it says we're going to bind the executive to these rules. What good is our country? What good is our society if we don't follow the rules we set for ourselves? Surely we must follow the law.
I want to say something, and I'm curious to hear Will's response. Let me say something, and I want to hear Will's response to this. I love the founding fathers. They were brilliant people. They put together the best government we've seen. But
love another man gay.
Now here's the issue. Here's the issue. They certainly did recognize emergency powers. They certainly did recognize when the executive would need to take actions that were considered probably extreme. We have seen instances throughout history. The challenge I see now is determining when we are facing an existential crisis and whether or not we are going to be like the Catalonians sitting on our hands like anarchists being like, well, we're being wiped the fuck out by invaders, but let's not do anything because we have a process to deal with. Or if we're going to step to attention and say, I understand the moral qualms with this process, how things are being handled, but holy shit, how do we deal with narco gangs, cartels, etc., when they're actively killing people, they're invading our homes? And so the question is, at what point
Left out that they're raping our wives.
do these platitudes of democratic society, and I don't mean I want this to happen, my question is legitimately, at what point do we have to say, holy shit, the system failed because we have been invaded?
Okay. Well, Alex, I'm going to answer his question, then you can start. Okay. So the answer is that the Constitution provides that flexibility, right? Like the due process that we're actually talking about here in all this context isn't really constitutional. It's
Mass immigration is not an invasion, Tim. Are you saying he's racist? He can't be racist. He's half Korean.
statutory. The withholding of removal is a grant by statute. The Convention of Torture comes from a treaty, but it ultimately is implemented by statute. Congress can change the law and change what due process is entitled to. And if they're
Sorry, real quick, real quick to interject.
Yeah.
I hear this a lot, but it is not getting to the core. We know Congress doesn't fucking work. We know that we have a two-seat majority.
Too bad. We have a republic, not a dictatorship.
And I'm not advocating for one. I'm telling you that at a certain point, people start shooting motherfuckers. Because when the people who live in Maryland are like...
He literally, he was like, I'm not advocating for that, but 2 seconds later, he's like, what are we supposed to do? The rule of law is already breaking down. He just gave like a villain speech about why... like due process and these like the minimum basic constitutional protections and regulations being followed is like, oh, sorry, the, civil war is imminent. We need to let all of that fall to the wayside.
Like MS-13 has shot a child in my neighborhood. They're not going to wait.
That's not what they're voting for. They voted for Van Hollen. They voted for
Van
Hollen. They voted for Van Hollen.
You are misunderstanding.
Dude, the Dreamers voted for Van Hollen. Okay?
Yeah. So you want rule by minority. You guys want rule by minority government. And that's crazy.
Let's pause. I am not prescribing anything. I am describing something. Right now, Congress cannot answer these questions for anybody, nor are the courts, nor is the executive branch. You've got people split massively across this country, near 50-50, ready to tear each other's heads off. And the idea that Congress will change something is a pipe dream.
Well,
I'm not saying I want it, I don't know
Also, when she said the Dreamers voted him in or whatever, she's just saying illegals voted.
what's going to happen. I'm saying what happens.
I mean, this is the reason. I mean, we might actually have it.
Because I think Dreamers refers to like kids that were... They're a bit like undocumented kids. It's when like if your parents are here illegally or overstayed a visa, and then later like brought you over, like you weren't born here, but you've been in the country since you were 1 and you grew up here, you're like considered a dreamer, but you don't actually have like citizenship or like a path to or even like legal residency sometimes.
A different interesting debate about the Alien Enemies Act at this point, right? Because this is where I would come back and say what Trump is doing, the Alien Enemies Act is right and just. The courts are overreaching, and so like Trump should continue.
But ignore the courts.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, like the ignoring and defying the courts is something that's been done
the Supreme Court
historically.
says you can't.
Well, yes. I mean, it's happened before, so that's his argument.
Can't do this Alien Enemy Act invocation is invalid. You would say, Trump, you should.
As I said earlier, bad things happened in the 1800s.
Disobey that.
Depends on how.
As you can't do this Alien Enemy Act invocation is invalid. You would say, Trump, you should disobey.
These people would be having a fucking bitch fit if any Democratic president was attempting, not breaking the law in the exact same way, maybe they wouldn't care or whatever, they cheer it on, but if they were subverting and ignoring the courts for any other thing.
Obey that.
Depends on how depends on the reasoning of the Supreme Court.
If they say the president, we don't get to change your facts, just like the Texas. I don't know if you read the.
I read that Texas thing.
So,
if they use that logic, I actually think that should be defined. I don't think that the Supreme Court should have the authority to determine what a war is. I think that's such an obvious encroachment on.
So the answer is Trump should defy the Supreme Court.
On that question, yeah.
He should. I am at the point where when Democrats called for packing the Supreme Court, I agreed with them. When Democrats arrested lawyers, I agreed with them.
What bullshit? You agreed with the
There is no way he agreed with them.
Dems back in the court. Show me that.
No.
Show me that clip.
Whoa.
Show me that clip. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
When the Democrats said we have 13, 13 federal, what are they called? Districts? They're not districts, right?
There's federal circuit.
There's 12 in federal circuit.
And there's only 9 justices. They said we need to add 4 more. I said, fuck yeah, we do when Trump wins, baby.
Oh, that's not what you said. That's not what you said.
Okay, all right, indoctrinate, guys. Indoctrinate. Before you go, how did George Floyd die? Will you tell him?
George Floyd. Oh my God, this is awkward, bro.
Is there an African American woman? How did he die?
This is awkward also because
How did he die?
He overdosed.
Hey, no, he didn't. No, no.
All right,
So-
listen, wait.
to be clear, no, I wanna address this.
Let me just say this. It's awkward because I stand here, also known as the only black woman watching Timcast.
Yeah. Wait a second. No,
I'm gonna tell you something, okay? This guy was a fucking menace to society.
So when you overdose on opioids, do you struggle for life like this?
Have you ever seen a tweaker? Have you ever been to Baltimore?
So to be clear,
You never seen a tweaker? Where do you live?
Guys, wait.
I mean, there's no proving this to this person. There's no proving this, but like this argument is insane to me because it's like, okay, let me grant that like what you're arguing for, what it leads to is that people that struggle with addiction, people that have gotten themselves hooked on illicit substances should be handled and treated worse, more roughly, than people that are like, it's just insane. So you're talking about some of the most vulnerable people like suffering in the United States. So you're talking about treating them worse or like, oh, if they die, fuck it.
Wait, he had meth in his system too?
So I encourage you to listen to the testimony of Dr. Tobin, who was the pulmonary cardiologist in that case. He was incredibly convincing, and it was the agonal breaths. And when you die of a dose like that, it's like you're falling into a sleep. It's not like you're struggling for your life like he was. Yeah.
I just want to say, Derek Chauvin showed up after Floyd was already on the ground and engaged in a hold that he was trained to by the Minneapolis Police Department.
Garbage.
And the defense, the
A knee on his neck. Even if that were true, then it's like, why are we putting up with police being taught to kneel on people's necks?
prosecution actually argued on the continuum of force he was entitled to use more force than he used.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
I watched the whole trial.
They said,
I watched the whole. So to be clear, were they justified if they wanted to shoot him in the head?
No.
Why not? So would you say that
He's
application was
delusional,
deadly
guys.
force?
I know.
What, the kneeling on the neck, neck area?
Yeah. Okay. So after George Floyd.
These are the same people that whine about Ashley Babbitt being killed or like, where is it? Okay. Hutch said something that I didn't agree with related to Ashley Babbitt. Let's see. What it was. Ashley Babbitt's estate, DOJ moved to settle $30 million wrongful death lawsuit. So the cop that shot this woman who was attempting to breach the Capitol or like jump through a window or something during the January 6th like riots, she was killed as she was like trying to do that. She was shot. The cop who shot her already granted qualified immunity, so they're not getting in trouble. Hutch, but this is absolutely insane. Literally the most justified police shooting ever caught on camera, and our tax dollars are going to make her family generationally wealthy. Insane. Oh, damn, this got 112,000 likes. No. This is insane to me. I mean, I understand that she was like, it has to be taken in the context of like, she was part of a mob. They were trying to secure like senators and like government representatives like away. They didn't know, and she was unarmed, but like it's not insane to make the assumption that maybe she is just because she wasn't brandishing it. Given the amount of chaos that was happening, people had weapons on January 6th. But here you'll see, do you think military arms verified user on X is like a righty or a lefty? But they'll be making these arguments that they'll never make in any other case. There is never a good reason to use deadly force on an unarmed person who is separated by a wall from you. I'm glad this infuriates your black little Marxist heart. I hope it keeps you up at night. That is fucking hilarious, but that he thinks Hutch is a Marxist, but whatever. The most justified shooting ever is against an unarmed woman. Like, when was the last time any of these people had any issue with any police shooting of like an unarmed like Black American or person that was killed by the cops? Justified by police shooting. She was surrounded by fully geared police. She was unarmed, and no other police that day felt the need to shoot anyone. You guys, right? Like, I agree with this. Like, I don't think it's unreasonable that they thought she might have been, but I think that they need to try to exhaust every single avenue before resorting to like pulling out a gun and killing. You guys rioted for years based on actual justified shootings. Literally, like in the same breath, they'll say, I mean, I do think that this is like kind of laying bare hypocrisy on like Hutch's part here. but he'll be like, oh, I didn't support the riots, and like, you know, framing it as rioting rather than protesting, but whatever. But they'll get that, like, yeah, there are instances where police in the United States not only use excessive force, but are then protected by the government with qualified immunity. But then, you know, an unarmed woman getting shot, it's like, you know, but then they'll turn around and like be okay with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd.
Floyd stops struggling for his life because he's dead.
Yep.
Is the application of force still justified after he's literally devoid of life?
Yes.
So when he's no longer, he could have. You're saying it was justified to use that hold indefinitely. Is that right?
And George Floyd wasn't armed. Just putting that out there. He was a big dude, and like I'm pretty sure he was like acting panicked or maybe somewhat belligerent or whatever, but he was unarmed.
I certainly didn't say indefinitely.
I'm asking you the question.
No,
Would they be justified to use the hold indefinitely?
Let me say this. I certainly never said indefinitely.
I'm asking.
But let me just stress, we're talking about kneeling on somebody after the fact. You didn't know what was going on.
He didn't kill him that way, but even if he had, it's base. That's what he's gonna argue.
Showed up after the fact, and I will say this: there's of course degrees on a continuum use of force. Chauvin showed up; he was already on the ground. He applied a hold that he was trained to do. I would argue it is fair to get him on some kind of negligent charge.
Oh, so he did do a crime.
All right, next.
He just said it. He just said you should get him on a negligent charge.
What I love about this guy is that he will take any morsel he can get and turn it into.
Wait, you just said.
Oh my God!
Hey, but you know this. Hey, since you are an attorney, you know that he has what is called qualified immunity. So
that's for civil matters. That's for civil. It's not for criminal. That's for damages cases and civil cases.
Why did the guy who simply held back the crowd go to prison?
You don't have qualified immunity as a cop?
Qualified immunity applies to civil damages cases, not to criminal matters.
Why did the man who was simply holding back the crowd go to prison?
Wait, no. Answer my question. Don't weasel out of it. All right? Don't weasel out of it. You just said you agree. First of all, you agree that you should have charged Chauvin with the crime. You just said it, right?
Oh, that question is pussy shit.
Wait.
That question is pussy shit.
Yeah.
Bro,
He's like desperate to deflect. Now that Pisco has on this.
Somebody new up. All right, we got to indoctrinate. Get your ass off the stage.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
He said he didn't want to die even before he was out of the vehicle. He could have been saying "kill me," and I still wouldn't think it was justified for them to do it.
That guy, the guy in the beanie come up that's been going crazy.
We're enjoying ourselves.
Come on down.
We fist bump.
Yeah, you, come on down. Hurry up, dude. You got 1 minute.
What up?
Guys, we only have a certain amount of time left, so we need to get this show on the road so we get as many people up here to debate. So go ahead, you got 1 minute.
So I don't understand, like, why you're arguing to people in a community that they should bring criminals back into it. Like, you argue things that you don't possess, like a moral dimension. Like, you don't give a fuck about America. You're on the side that kills children, 50 million babies in the last 50 fucking years, 325,000 children fucking sex trafficked, fucking 50,000 little girls had their because of the way your party.
Okay. When these people are like, you don't give a fuck about America, it's like, dude, you do realize like it's possible to become a US citizen without actually being born here first, right?
Fucking votes. You're leading us to a path that only leads in violence.
Like, I'm not even gonna get into the whole like we're a melting pot, nation of immigrants or whatever, even though all of that's true or whatever. But like they make it sound like the only people that are Americans were born here, and that's it.
Violence, and I want to know fucking why.
Yeah. So
sit down.
In the industry, we call that a gish gallop. So you just raise a bunch of different issues that are not topical: abortion, trans issues, and basically like you're doing anything, right? And I can tell to distract from the issue at hand, which is this just and should it be brought back?
Wait. I want to point of order. Gish gallop doesn't apply when we actually tell him he gets 1 minute unfettered to make.
Yeah, to whatever.
Well, you can still get your minute.
He doesn't understand.
You still get your minute, but I'm just telling you, you're all over the place, all right? So try to stay focused. The issue isn't. So, would you agree that Kilmar Abreu Garcia has the right to a presumption of innocence of the people who are accusing him of crimes? Yes or no?
Why are you continuing to argue positions that will bring society to violence?
So should there be a presumption of innocence? Yes or no?
For an illegal alien? No, he's not fucking innocent. He's here illegally.
Why?
Deport him. Why do you want American citizens to pay more fucking money to bring him back to deport him again? That's fucking retarded.
Should U.S. murderers get trials?
United citizens do.
Yes.
If you're an illegal alien, you fucking don't. The due process is: are you a citizen? No. Okay, get the fuck out.
Calm the fuck down.
No,
right?
don't tell him to calm down. Let him get
I'll tell him to calm
jacked
down. I'll tell him to calm down.
We love the passion, but we'll turn it.
You look like you're about to blow up.
Pump it up. Don't listen to those libtards or that libtard. Don't listen to them.
I grew up with a loud family, so 8 or 7 is my regular.
We have a constitution. We should follow it. That's what being American means. We should follow the fucking
then
constitution.
the fucking Biden administration shouldn't have let 20 fucking million illegals in.
What about? So should we follow the Constitution or not, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So if the Constitution, so you just said
I mean, this is what I mean with it, like bringing up Obama's the deporter in chief when it's convenient for them to point that out as a gotcha to libs, and then, but he also let in like 20 million illegals. That's also important to bring up.
He just said we should follow the Constitution. If the Constitution says that these people do get due process rights, should we follow that?
So the Constitution.
Yes or no?
No.
So you don't think we should follow the Constitution when you decide?
Yes. How about asking me why on my opinions instead of just fucking assuming like every fucking midwit leftist does?
This is a lot. So he said we should follow the Constitution, and then the next thing I asked him, I said, if it says that these people should get rights under the Constitution, should we follow? He says no. So explain that.
And so let me interject here, because I think I know exactly what you're saying when you brought up Biden letting in 20 million illegal immigrants. As Bill Ackman stated, a country that lets in 20 million people unvetted, but then cannot remove them, will lose its democratic values. An untenable. Listen,
These people can't vote. These people pay taxes and get nothing out of it.
I want due process for everybody. I want constitutional rights where they apply. I am scared and confused right now because we have an untenable situation with immigration caused by Democrats. I don't know what to do. So when you come out and say we are now shackled to a system that will kill our country, I say I don't know that anyone will accept that.
All we can do is tell the left to stop because you're leading us towards violence. You are leading the country towards violence. Fucking stop. Every one of your arguments is wrong and full of every fucking logical fallacy we could think of. Shut the fuck up. Stop arguing for fucking destroying our country.
So the enemy is within. The people who are destroying this country, are the bootlicking shills. The bootlicking shills who just trust the government, Listen, and
like fucking Democrats with the Biden administration? You guys didn't criticize a single fucking thing they did.
Guys. No one in this room trusted the government under the Biden administration. You did. One guy did. All right, we're good. The point is, when you say they're bootlicking shills, it's every 4 years the Democrats say you're a bootlicking shill, then 4 years later they're the bootlicking shills.
So just to be clear, the reason why we want to follow the Constitution, even if there are people you don't like, and you can raise a lot of things about people you don't like and why we should break the law to go after them, is we don't trust in the next 4 years, you're not going to get a president AOC, you're not going to get a president, whoever the fucking worst leftist is that you think, and now that you've made a road through the Constitution, you've made a road for your own back, and they're going to come after you, and they're going to attack your First Amendment rights. You guys all understand this.
We will erode whatever we have to stop you because you've been eroding it for centuries.
So the real enemies are those who would tell you to give up your country, give up the Constitution, don't follow it.
You took our fucking country with the Biden administration.
This is why I brought up the question before to hear Will. Will's like a very straight-laced forward. I'm a lawyer. I'll answer his questions. That's why I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. Here's my view. You guys know me. When I was young, I despised the Bush administration. Obama came in, and before he did, I was like, everyone's telling me it's going to be different. Then boy, that motherfucker killed a lot of people and spied on people. And the National Defense Authorization Act, indefinite detention provision. I said, holy shit, fuck these people. Then Trump ran against Hillary, and I said, holy fuck, this country is insane. Trump wins, and for the most part, I'm like, I don't care for this shit. Then the Democrats started losing their fucking minds with DEI.
Why are we monologuing?
And weird fucking shit. And then Trump in 2020 said, I got no new wars. I'm setting up a timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan. I'm getting rid of DEI and government contracting. And I said, actually, this is pretty good. I'm setting up a timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan and weird fucking shit. And then Trump in 2020 said, I got no new wars.
Okay, Trump the pro-peace candidate. Trump the pro-peace. Who's the fucking... We're just going to ignore assassination of Soleimani.
Setting up a timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Setting a timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan. Biden was the one who did that.
Getting rid of DEI and government contracting. And I said, actually, this is
the only one that he did.
Pretty good. But what did they do to the man for those 4 years? They accused him of being a traitor to this country. Then after
the DEI thing, like if they're talking about like ending what is it, like affirmative action, stuff like that. I mean, that's like Trump enabled the Supreme Court to do that because he packed it. He like got his picks, but like he himself didn't entirely do that unilaterally.
After this. But what did they do to the man for those 4 years? They accused him of being a traitor to this country. Then after this, they started arresting his lawyers. They falsely accused him of crimes. They claimed that a misdemeanor charge, which arguably could be a single count, was 34 felonies. They created a new law in New York so that a woman can say 30 years ago he sexually abused me. I can't prove it. I wore a dress from the future and I had a magic key to open the door. And I'm sitting here watching numerous Trump lawyers get arrested. Now we're in the Trump administration and they're begging me, please stick to decorum. Don't arrest lawyers. Don't arrest judges. Like, motherfucker, you did it first. You did this to us. And now we're upset and saying, what do we do?
Welcome to the Civil War you started.
Yeah.
All right, guys, give it up. Now, all right, hey, what's your name? Say your name before you go.
I'm Nicholas Steinbrecher, lost and found on Discord. Also representing the Jamcast Discord.
Thank you, Nick. All right, now our next...
Most sane Discord user.
A debater. Their name is Cash.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah,
I'm
I just wanted to have like
Cash,
the quick
come on.
point. Which
Did you
is,
agree with
I
that
think
unhinged guy?
No, I mean, I don't agree with him, obviously, right? Like, he's a little more aggressive than I would be. But I think my substantive point would be that, like, much of your argument is, like, we really need to not open Pandora's box, and I would just say I think Pandora's box has been opened pretty darn widely, you know, so.
All right, Cash. You got the mic. The floor is yours.
All right, guys, good morning, everyone here. I am a libtard. I think I'm one of the only ones in the room.
Oh my gosh, somebody gonna argue with me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Pisco, for inviting
He
me.
needs a
here.
break.
Of course. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Grab the mic and hold it up so we can hear you.
So I'm an American exceptionalist. I love this country. I love this Constitution. I think Pisco brought up this point. I mean, I can read out like the amendment that says that people have the rights to due process, regardless if you are a illegal or a citizen. I think that just needs to be cleared up first. That Pisco is the pro-Constitution person here. Every single person, I heard them screaming in the room saying illegal immigrants don't get due process. That is against the Constitution. Just to clarify that first. Second of all, I also think it's important to acknowledge that I trust the U.S. government more so with processing someone that we'd all agree is probably a bad guy, Gilmar Abrego Garcia, than some random, prison in El Salvador. I think we have a good justice system, as many of you guys might disagree. It's crazy to me that you guys disagree with the 6 Republican Supreme Court justices that said that we need to facilitate his return. Rule of law is very important in this country. And I don't know what you guys would be saying. I think Pisco hinted at this. If AOC becomes president and all of a sudden says that the January 6ers are a bigger threat to this country than the illegal immigrants, then deports them with no due process, you guys will all be crying your asses 100%
out.
true. Base.
So
All right.
grab the seat, brother. Let me just respond to that. That already happened.
Bullshit. All
The room is silent.
those people got trials. Everyone in the J6, and then they all got due process. All of them got due process. And then these criminal terrorist insurrectionist thugs got let out by the criminal in the Oval Office right
Let me
now,
just ask
illegally
that.
occupying the office.
I would just like to ask a procedural
I was about to say, weren't most of these people pardoned in the end anyway?
question to our lawyer friends here. If evidence is denied to the accused parties, is that due process?
Yeah, it wasn't denied. It would be a violation of due process. But it wasn't actually
That's
denied.
not what I asked.
It wasn't actually denied.
That's not what I asked.
Whether the evidence is admissible, right? And
It
so,
would depend if it's admissible. It's also it's a whole doctrine on Brady that would apply, and so I would need to know the specific facts. And also, I'm not an expert on Brady.
So
I'm not a criminal lawyer.
what did we have? 44,000 hours of footage. Not that
This was a lie, and this was denied on the merits in the courts. So no.
That's not enough.
No. Go for it, Will.
okay, the actual real, the best argument about the failure of due process in the J6 cases was the fact that change of venue motions got denied. There's no excuse that any of these trials happened in D.C.
Where the crime was committed?
In a 97%.
We heard if the Discord person was not just a smug bug plant. Many people are saying this.
Democratic.
Who the fuck cares? You committed the crime in a place.
J6 cases was the fact that change of venue motions got denied. There's no excuse that any of these trials happened in D.C.
Where the crime was committed?
In a 97% Democratic.
Who the fuck cares? You committed the crime in a place. You do the time there. You do the trial there.
Whoa! I thought you cared about fair trials.
Wait. So
What did that happen?
Whoa.
It's a white guy. You don't want a fair trial anymore, do you?
So doesn't the Constitution specify?
The only type of discrimination that really exists in this country is against Republicans. Not black people, not women, Republicans.
Doesn't the Constitution?
Then suddenly they can understand if like the deck is stacked against someone.
Doesn't the Constitution specify that there is a venue provision that when you commit a crime, it shall be tried in the district in which it was committed?
Yeah, but that venue is not defeated by due process and the right to a fair trial.
So there's a presumption. There's a presumption that a jury is able to put aside their bias, their political bias.
Yeah, but that presumption's not absolute. What happens if a black defendant is facing a jury of all white and like the prosecutors excluding?
It's a high burden to get rid of that jury.
I don't know. I mean, well, think about this. But whoa.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying it's a high burden to show that it's racially.
Oh my God, is he about to be? Would he ever accept this argument though? It's like, yeah, that happens all the time. That happens all the time that black people have to have juries that are comprised mostly of white people. What?
It's a high burden to get rid of that jury.
I don't know. I mean,
he's like backed himself into this like woke corner that he has to defend this point he probably doesn't want to.
Well, think about this.
Think about racism, you guys. It's like the first time this has occurred to him. If bias against Republicans exists, what if bias against like a race exists?
But whoa.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying it's a high burden to show that it's racially, unconstitutional.
I mean, you see, like if you look at the polling, well, I want to make this point because this is, I think, the key issue, which I think liberals have lied all the time. You look at the polling on, like, for example, whether liberal parents would be happy if their child came home with a conservative partner to marry. They're not. And in fact, in general, this number is...
Dude, only conservatives care about this. I exclusively hear conservatives bitching about the fact that libs don't want to date them. I never hear the reverse happen. I never hear leftists or lib people complaining that conservatives don't want to date them because they understand, no, we're probably not going to agree on most things. I don't want to date you.
Higher than in a world where a conservative partner to marry. They're not. And in fact, in general, this number is higher than in a world where than cross-racial. So I mean, I'm sorry, the way that there's polarization in this country between Republicans and Democrats, which is literally demonstrated by this room, and also a lot of the things, intemperate things you've said about the people in this room, is demonstrating that there's not a jury of your peers, and the J6ers didn't get fair trials.
Let me ask you another question. Is it due process if the prosecution uses information from after the trial happened to seek a greater sentence on the individual based on speech of the individual?
No, why would it
Not
be?
necessarily.
That is not.
It gets to whether or not you have regret, whether or not you. There are factors of sentencing that you're able to, that the judge has discretion to weigh.
I was gonna say, why would that be? That's just new evidence.
That aren't. Yes. So for example, I'll give you a case like Martin Shkreli. You guys know Martin Shkreli?
It would be a violation if they tried to retroactively, try you for things that you've already been found to be not guilty of or whatever. But that's not what he outlined.
Shkreli?
Of course, yes.
So Shkreli, and this is actually, I think Shkreli can be funny sometimes, but he talked shit about Hillary Clinton when he had his trial or something, and then the judge sentenced him more. Now you might disagree with that, but it just is the case that judges are allowed a great deal of discretion at sentencing, and that's our system.
Okay, can I introduce kind of a new topic a little bit because I feel like we're getting back down to.
Yeah, you got less than a minute though. Go ahead.
Let's give him time.
We haven't had a liberal yet the entire night.
That's what I'm saying. We'll talk. Hey, Cash, say something. Gosh,
I think that
And I don't even think this guy's a liberal.
Pisco hinted at, and I was kind of talking about this in my opening speech, is that what's important to recognize here is that it sets a precedent. These laws set a bad precedent. I think we should also talk about Mahmoud Khalil. I go to Georgetown. There was a guy that was in our grad department that got deported for supporting Palestine, literally just for supporting Palestine. I just want to hear the conservatives here that if AOC gets elected and designates
Maybe he's a lib.
Israel as a terrorist state and starts supporting a bunch of pro-Israel people, I'm Jewish, I'm pro-Israel, I'd be afraid of that. You conservatives have opened the floodgates
100%.
for free speech to be completely violated because Trump is breaking these laws.
I will answer this.
It takes two to tango with these laws.
I will answer your point. If you manage to get AOC to be president, and she, in her bizarre wisdom, not wisdom, right? But if she decides to say, you know what, if we think the IDF is a terrorist organization, you manage to classify it as such, and then you say Israelis who advocated on behalf of the IDF, she would have the authority to do so under our laws. She could deport Israelis.
Okay, but it wouldn't end there. They would bitch and moan about that.
Has authority to give them due process.
Bro. So I would argue that a large, I don't know the exact numbers, but the Trump base is split between anti-interventionist, bye-bye Israel, and pro-Israel. There's a lot of people who are pro-Israel, but when the argument you make about the conservatives, you're going to find a lot of them are more conservatarian, being yeah, I don't give a shit about Israel.
That's his point. He's trying to.
They're not going to disagree. They're going to cheer you on.
We're engaging in a hypothetical.
Here's my point. I guess the fundamental answer is I'm happy with the Khalil deportation. The guy hates our country. He's a guest. He can go home. Sorry, you want to go out there and be
I think people that rioted the Capitol hate this country more than someone criticizing foreign policy. All the people on green card that destroyed the Capitol should be deported immediately. That is the same hating this country. Hating this country. Some of them are not citizens that destroyed the Capitol.
I got a question for Will. You said he's a guest in our country.
Oh, Will.
Yeah.
Wait. He's a guest in our country. He hates our country, so we could deport him.
Yes.
And that is the State Department has the discretion just to say we revoke your visa. Mm-hmm. Is there a specific criteria by which you think they're required, or do you think it's unilateral? No, you're a guest. Get the fuck out.
Under law, honestly, the Secretary of State, there's a provision that was used in this case, which is the Secretary of State said, this guy's continued presence in the country is damaging to American foreign policy.
That is very vague. AOC's president.
Sure, I understand this slippery slope, but I just think that's the law.
President AOC in 2029 says, Stephen Crowder, you are a guest in this country. Get the fuck out.
True. He's a citizen, so that doesn't
Viva Fry.
Stephen Crowder's on green card.
Viva Fry.
Viva
Fry. Better start enjoying poutine again because he's got to go back. I said he's got to enjoy poutine again because he's got to go back to.
All right. So here's a question, right?
We love you, Viva.
Under that framework, Will, just a quick question.
Okay.
The First Amendment, relates to speech. It also relates to the religion clauses. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So under that discretion, what can the State Department say? Muslims, as a general rule, are damaging, prejudicial to our foreign policy interests, and then we're going to get rid of them.
That's an interesting question because I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's a statutory. I guess you could make an argument. I haven't really thought about that.
The question is, it doesn't matter what the INA says if it violates a right, like free
right, but I think
clause.
the Supreme Court's already resolved this. There's just not a First Amendment defense to removal, right? I don't think there is.
Of course there is. We defend their right to speak on foreign issues.
I do really like this question because it also strikes at how do we define religion legally? And if we're dealing with terrorist organizations, would we allow them to use religion as a shield for their extremist ideologies, or do we separate that legally?
Right, because that also if religion, free practice of religion, then it's you can't. Maybe support.
Tim asking that this question hasn't already been answered by the Supreme Court.
Bring a terrorist organization. It's a core religious belief.
But just be clear. So you're opening the door. Is it Caleb? Sorry, Cash. Sorry. As Cash said, if you're going to allow this big room, this big hole in the First Amendment for certain speech in favor of Hamas, now you're opening the door for if you're a Christian and you're not a citizen, we can deport you just because you're a Christian.
You invaded the Capitol. You're not a citizen.
I want to say to you what you said. Just to answer your question, you said if President AOC. What you described, most people feel happened already with Biden.
And they're wrong. What do you mean? Wait, explain. They're wrong.
No. It's not wrong that someone felt
It's about their feelings, you guys. Feelings.
Yeah, but and you said if President AOC, what you described, most people feel happened already with Biden.
And they're wrong. What do you mean? Wait, explain it wrong.
No, it's not wrong that someone felt a way.
Yeah, but okay, I feel that
Can't disagree with people's feelings, you guys.
you're all wrong.
Yeah, I feel
What
that.
are you saying?
And I do agree that you feel we're wrong. My point is, you said
You're saying nothing. I don't understand.
You said, how would you feel if AOC became president?
It's a way of asking the question.
Obviously,
Obviously, you understand. What I'm trying to point out is the hypocrisy here. That of course, if AOC started deporting people that are
the
dangerous.
circumstance you described already happened.
I feel like this betrays like a really big insight into how he thinks of these things. He thinks that this is just a matter of like, you feel this way about it. You feel like constitutional rights have been violated. You feel like due process has been violated. You feel that way. Okay, you're valid. You know, well, Republicans feel this way. Do they have evidence to back it up? No. Republicans feel like a bunch of illegals have voted. Do they have evidence? No, but they feel that way. So their feelings are as valid as yours.
No, he's asking you to actually there were Israeli advocates of who were opposed to the two-bank solution, and Biden denied their visas simply on the grounds.
Whoa, denying visa is different than someone
two-bank solutions
already in the country.
It's not even that.
It's a lie. You were lying
about J6.
I'm not lying about that.
Talking about
you're making a false equivalency. You're making a false equivalency. Obviously, denying a
Also, you would just be outlining an example of like Biden probably the Biden administration unduly denying somebody a visa.
It is basically the same. You're intentionally misrepresenting a case for political points. He could just be wrong, or he could just disagree with him. You're not lying. You're not. I didn't misrepresent.
Let me tell you a story, and I want to hear your reaction to it.
Please.
There was a man and a woman in their mid-40s. Several hours after the
I'm going to tell you guys a story, and the story goes like this. If you are not following me on Twitch already, you should be following me. If you have not liked the stream on YouTube, you should like the stream. If you have not subscribed to me on YouTube, you should subscribe to me on YouTube. If you want to support the stream, you can ! Tip or donate in chat. My Streamlabs tip link will come up, and I would really appreciate it. Yeah.
Event of January 6th, they were in D.C. They live in Maryland. They walked up on the backside of the Capitol where there was no violence and nothing was going on. The doors were open. There were no barricades. They walked up to the building. No police in sight. They walked into the building and looked around taking pictures and walked out after about 3 or 4 minutes. Should they go to prison?
It depends.
On what?
I love that answer. It's the ultimate
It depends. Sure, I'll say intuitively no, sure.
So well, they fucking did.
Okay, do you know what's great, though? Is that they now have due process, and they're going to go through. And 100% finds them.
My point.
If a court finds
I understand.
Them,
my point was, what you describe about AOC going after people happened to people who bumbled upon the Capitol not knowing what was going on.
Sam, I have a question.
Yeah.
If AOC took that case...
They just bumbled upon the Capitol, you guys. They didn't know what was going on. Y'all ever find yourselves just unknowingly participating in a riot? That ever happened to you guys?
And just deported
You're just like, whoa, how did I end up here?
Instead of getting due process, would you be more mad?
Deported American citizens.
Even though I probably don't even really like disagree with them, because it's like anybody who was at January 6th and might have entered the Capitol, but was like literally just standing there and didn't actually do anything violent, didn't have a weapon or whatever. It's like, no, I don't actually think you're like a huge security threat. And I don't think that they should be performatively throwing the book at people or whatever for doing that.
Yes.
AOC took that case and just deported
to people who bumbled. Yeah. My point was, what you describe about AOC going after people happened to people who bumbled upon the Capitol not knowing what was going on.
Sam, I have a question.
Yeah.
If
the entry wasn't nonviolent, yeah, but it might be true that the entry wasn't nonviolent for the first people that breached, but then the people that come in afterwards, I don't know how that part is adjudicated. Like if you're not actually the person who breached it, but then people wander in afterwards, I'm not sure.
AOC took that case and just deported them instead of getting due process, would you be more mad?
Deported American citizens. I would be mad, yes.
Okay, sorry. Do you understand? If there are two people on green card, like walking out,
I'll be mad.
Well, he says he wants. You agree? He said he wants to do that, right?
And it's wrong to have said
it. Cool.
And it should never happen. And I will.
So do you condemn him for saying it?
I condemn. Well, let me.
Multiple times.
Right. Let me say this.
You won't because.
Accessory. I mean, yeah, you probably would be an accessory, but it's like they also take into account like if this is your first offense, if you've never been charged with anything, like if you're somebody and that was literally. You weren't actually the person who instigated the break-in. You're not actually inciting people. You're there and you're going along with it, but you didn't actually do any of it yourself. You just are like effectively trespassing or being where you're not supposed to be. I think especially if you don't have any like priors, there's a case that's like, yeah, you're not really a security risk. You're not going to be like a repeat offender.
Because you're beholden to the administration.
You contempt Kilmar Garcia for being his wife.
I want to try to help people understand.
Ignorance doesn't protect you from the laws that you break. No, but in like trying to understand people's states of mind or frames of mind is important when you're determining how they should be sentenced.
Stand things. So let me give you an answer. Piers Morgan asked me the other day, if Joe Biden did the things Trump did, would you praise him for it? And I said, no, probably not. You asked me before the show. I remember what you said, something similar. And I said, the issue is that Donald Trump largely represents my moral worldview, which means I'm tolerant of his failings.
So morals mean you could violate the Constitution. That's what you're saying.
You won't condemn it.
Let me finish what I'm saying.
Your morals, your subjective morals can violate the Constitution.
What I'm saying.
Sorry,
Joe
Tim.
Biden largely represents things that are antithetical to my worldviews. This is not about whether or not someone could violate the Constitution, because I already told you Trump sending Americans to CICA is a bad thing, and
But you won't condemn him for saying it.
Okay, so you condemn him for violating the Constitution. Just
saying it, for saying
say
it.
yes, and I'll let you finish.
You are loading the question.
I'm not loading the question. It's literally he violated the Constitution. Do you support it? Yes or
we
no?
are talking about if he were to do.
That's still a crime. Yeah, it is still a crime, but there's tons of instances where people will have charges dropped, even if there's evidence that they commit the crime, if the state or they don't feel like it's going to be worth it to pursue it, even if you technically committed a crime. Just depends. There's like a lot of discretion that's given to like a judge or the prosecutors in cases to do that.
Something, not did he do something?
If he already did something, we're asking you to condemn
Donald Trump sent American citizens
Or if you cooperate, sometimes I'll do that.
to CICA, I would condemn him for that.
But he said he wants to do it, so do you condemn that?
I condemn those statements.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
100%.
I appreciate that.
I also will tell you this. Donald Trump should be criminally investigated for the killing of Abdurrahman al-Awlaki's little sister in Yemen. He gets no free passes from me, but we don't know for sure. What we do know is that Obama admitted to it. We know there's been accusations about Trump. My response is accusations warrant investigation, admission warrant something more.
And yet, when it comes to Trump administration officials and their misconduct, like Signalgate, for example, he'll...
Intent to trespass doesn't require the act of breaking the door window. I mean, breaking and entering, you don't even have to physically break into a place, like break down a door or a window for you to be charged with like breaking and entering. And intent to trespass doesn't require, and it's like, even if it's not required, like I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people that were present at January 6th that like even didn't breach it themselves but went in that were able to get a drop because of like plea deals, or they just felt like it wasn't worth their time if they didn't have any criminal history.
He'll say
that was an inside job. Go ahead.
So what he'll do is
with all due respect, with respect to
It's like the thing that ends up being bullshit is that like if this were Black Lives Matter, literally, or like a leftist organization or literally any other organization attempting to do this shit at the Capitol, these people would have been fucking lynched, you know? But because it's like mostly Trump supporters, mostly white people, they don't get in trouble. But it doesn't usually make me want to seek like a lot of criminal retribution against the people. It's like, to me, like the main instigators, the people that were the most violent, the people that were inciting, the people that had weapons, etc. It's like, obviously, you know, that I don't really care about, but the people that were there, that to the extent that you can be non-violent in that capacity, had no priors and weren't really doing anything or instigating it themselves, like I don't really have a huge issue if they don't end up really getting charged or like getting jail time or stuff like that, if they just get probation or very, very light charges.
to your statements on Signalgate, and for time.
Oh yeah, okay.
I just don't. I understand Signalgate, but I don't think it rises to. I lay two things forward. Trump has been accused of murdering a 7-year-old American girl. Obama admitted that his administration killed a 16-year-old American citizen. Neither of them were criminals. I don't want to muddy that with Signalgate because there's such a substantive.
Wait, Tim, I think you got sidetracked from your point on Piers Morgan, though. Were you going to finish that? Why do you think that it's okay if Joe Biden does terrorist, but Trump doesn't? Can you defend that to me?
That was my point. My
just
point
because
is
Trump is more moral.
Let
me explain.
That's called moral inconsistency. Sorry,
no,
please,
it's called. Listen. Donald Trump wants to secure our borders. Our borders should be secure. Donald Trump wants to enforce the law that I think should be enforced properly.
Also, he's just like outlining why like American presidents should be dragged before the ICC, not really an argument that they should be able to act with impunity because past presidents have done whatever they wanted.
Joe Biden was advocating for child.
Got arrested twice, occupying the parliament inside, and got away with it at most. 20 hours in jail because of constitutional corporate and Canadian was in a riot. Yeah. And I mean, like, you know, especially the first time, like if like you said twice, but the first time you were arrested, like what is the basis to like really lock you up in jail for a significant period of time? If you're a cooperative, if you have no criminal history and stuff like that, you know.
Sterilization.
But I mean, you're watching somebody who thinks that like way too many people in the United States are like thrown in jail, or like it's that, you know, a lot of this, I don't like our criminal justice system, to say the least.
Okay, child sex change operations. I think
like too many people that are effectively involved in like nonviolent crime and stuff like that are in jail.
I think are pure evil. Joe Biden took
missed something.
That
Sex
I think should be enforced
sex
properly.
change operations are
Joe
evil.
Biden was advocating for child sterilization. okay, child sex change operations, I think are pure evil. Joe Biden took classified documents with him, and it's explicitly stated it was because he wanted to write a book that he could sell.
And then he complied with the FBI when they asked him for it. Guess what Trump didn't do when he had documents?
And his ghostwriter, he want evil.
Wait,
Joe Biden took classified documents with him, and it's explicitly stated it was because he wanted to write a book that he could sell.
And then he complied with the FBI when they asked him for it. Guess what Trump didn't
There are examples of whatever.
do when he had documents?
And his ghostwriter destroyed the evidence, worried that it was something.
Like, the person that comes to mind, what is it? Who is the person that was involved? And this happened somewhat under the Obama administration, but I wouldn't be surprised if the person involved themselves was a Republican. That guy who wrote No Easy Day, the book that was about like killing, the operation to kill bin Laden. Like, he got in trouble because he was like writing this book, and then he retired like not long after he actually did like the Navy SEAL operation. And they actually found the book was published before ever going to the Pentagon to make sure that he wasn't actually publishing classified information related to the operation of killing bin Laden. And then on top of it, they discovered, because the Pentagon opened like an investigation into him, that he had intentionally held photographic evidence, or like a photo of bin Laden's body after he'd been killed, that he was not supposed to have. But I can't remember if this guy was a Republican or not. But there's instances like what he's saying, like Joe Biden has done or whatever, has like already happened by Republicans.
Something wrong. Some documents with him, and it's explicitly stated it was because he wanted to write a book.
But the guy was found, I don't know if he was found guilty, but then he wasn't allowed to keep like the royalties from the book because he didn't, he intentionally did not have it reviewed by the Pentagon when he knew he was supposed to.
That he could sell. And then he complied took classified documents with him, and it's explicitly stated it was because he wanted to write a book that he could sell. And then he complied with the FBI when they asked him for it. Guess what Trump didn't do when he had documents? And his ghostwriter destroyed the evidence, worried that it was something wrong. My point is this.
His ghostwriter, not Joe Biden, to clarify.
You and everybody else in this country has a moral worldview. Yes. It is the utmost naivete to say, no, I don't, I'm on principle. Not true at all. Not true at all.
Yeah, but that doesn't respond to... All right, come on, calm down. What you're saying doesn't really respond to what I'm asking. If you have morals, are some of those morals to say, not fuck up the economy with tariffs or violate the Constitution?
I'm pro-tariff.
You're pro-tariff?
I'm not pro-universal tariffs the way Trump did. I'm pro his selective tariffs.
I watched that Piers Morgan thing. You said Trump handled the, he asked about like the economy doing bad, and then you were like, yeah, if Joe Biden did the exact same thing, I wouldn't defend it. What you're saying does not answer that question at all. You understand that, right?
Let me try and explain it again.
Yes.
The simplest way I can do it without going into like, I don't know, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, the Suez Canal, the Crimea, and all of the things we can talk about with Michael Zachevsky.
Trump ordered the activity that killed the girl the same way Obama did, but Tim gives Trump the benefit of the doubt by saying IDK. Because it doesn't matter. It's just whatever, like flimsy pretext to justify whatever Trump's up to.
The simplest way I can do it without going into like, I don't know, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, the Suez Canal, the Crimea, and all of the things we can talk about with Michael Zachevsky, Biden's actions overseas. We don't need to get into that.
Sure.
I'll just keep it surface level and as simple as possible. Biden is for child sex changes. Trump
opposed. So that means that if he does something...
Let's keep it simple, guys. Biden, huge advocate of child sex change operations. He said this many times, definitely.
Answer your question.
Okay, sorry.
Now, do you want me to give you a 1-hour essay thesis on everything Joe Biden did that I think was criminal, wrong, and he should go to jail for? I'm trying to avoid doing that by saying very simply, what Donald Trump represents morally, as for America, is much more in line with my worldview. I can get into great detail on the Burisma scandal if you want me to, or Tony Bobulinski, or Devin Archer.
We should have a debate, by the way.
We don't have that much time.
No, hold on. He wants to hear the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. Okay, so in 2009, we don't want to go there. No. But I absolutely could. For the sake of time, I will just say this. Trump, in my opinion, universal tariffs doesn't make sense. I am skeptical of it, but I am largely biased in favor of Trump's moral worldview and hopeful that his...
We know, dude.
Administration has a plan that will bear out positively. That being said, I'm not entirely sure universal tariffs do. Selective tariffs I'm a big fan of because I believe, being a manufacturer of skateboards, I can tell you directly as an industry how free trade destroyed an industry and destroyed people's lives.
Okay, sure. I guess
so. Joe Biden,
you did respond. You just reaffirmed what you said.
And now Joe Biden, with all the things he's done that I think are bad, were he to enact universal tariffs, I do not trust him because I believe him to be an amoral crackpot, so I would not give him the benefit of the doubt.
So what you're saying is that you cannot acknowledge when something is bad just because the person might have a good intention?
I literally said the tariffs were done poorly and that I'm skeptical of them.
Okay. But you said you support universal tariffs, but when Biden doesn't, you don't.
I do not support universal tariffs.
Selective tariffs. Okay, Cash, get off.
Okay, sorry. My friend Alex and Max.
Thank you for coming up. That was great.
Thank you, Cash. Okay, hold on.
Guys, I love all of you. You just got to read the Constitution better. Much love.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, is it transgender? Do you have balls enough to come up here yet? I know. Well, then come and tell us about it. Come on, we only have a couple people. Come on. You don't get to come here and not say something. Oh my God! You know, it's funny for not having a pussy. You sure act like one.
There's a certain amount of no's we'll respect.
I know. Okay. All right. Is that Tyler? Right? Have you been wanting? No. What's your name in the hat? Or did you submit, T-Bone?
No, but my boss did.
Okay, well then let's get the black dude. Come on down, T-Bone.
We know this guy.
I took a lot of notes. All right.
Yeah, all right.
So I want to go ahead and I want to go to your point, Alex. You were talking about Lake and Riley,
yes,
right? But also the entitlement programs. We forgot about that, and about all the money that was spent through all the illegal immigrants. As soon as they came in, they had a bunch of I don't know if there's a bunch of cards with money on them, but I was at the airport, I believe it was last year, and I had somebody walk up to me, and he was an immigrant, and he said, and he talked to me in Spanish, and I knew a little bit of Spanish, but he gave me a bunch of he gave me a bunch of cash and was like, hey, can you help me get to New York? I just need you to buy a ticket. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But he had a wad of
How does he know that he was an immigrant? I mean, the story sounds made up, but because he spoke Spanish.
cash, and he had a backpack on his thing, and he had this app on his phone. Now, do you guys remember about the
CBP one?
The CBP1 app.
I wonder how insane Pisco thinks this person is.
Right. But anyways, so to my point, you said close the border, right? That will solve all the issues. But how do you get with a president before that sabotaged our own country and sabotaged our borders, allowing all of these other people to come in, and now you're telling the other president that no, you have to follow some sort of standard.
Sit down. Thank you. Good job. Great job.
People will use these examples, and first of all, let's be clear. Some of these benefit programs are state-run, some of them are federally run, and one of the reasons why these people are given benefits at all is because oftentimes they don't have authorization to work. Okay, when you're applying for asylum, you can get an EAD, but you have to wait a certain amount of time before EAD is an employment authorization document. You have to wait a certain amount of time before you can apply for EAD. And so in the interim, you're literally making it illegal for this person.
Yeah, but 20 million people?
What do you mean?
20 million people are applying for this?
So you're saying 20 million people cross the border illegal and have entered into the country. So I think that number is inflated. It's not true.
I think that number just includes a bunch of people that have overstayed their visas, which is not a crime. Like a civil violation.
Wait, let's say 10.
10, 15. So, because it calculates border crossings that some of them are, multiple times, and I just don't think it's a true estimate. But not everybody is a beneficiary of those programs. On net, once you give them EADs, these people are putting money into our entitlements. Literally, they're given tax numbers so that they can pay into things like Social Security and Medicare, and they're never going to get those benefits from those. So when you let them work, and I'm not saying that I agree with illegal immigration. I don't agree with illegal immigration, but it's just a function of the fact that
I do.
Otherwise, these people are going to be like, I don't know, dying on the street.
Now, remember when we came onto your show in Scrapjaw, and he was talking about how he went over to Springfield, Ohio, right?
Being serious, I just don't really care about it.
And there was a bunch of issues, not necessarily what we thought was the problem, which was people were eating dogs and cats, whatever. But he was talking about how there were a bunch of immigrants that had money that were paying for cars that didn't have licenses, that didn't have insurance on these vehicles, and they were wrecking these vehicles. Now, the problem was those vehicles, he would take them back to his, not to a shop, but like the yard where they tow, right? But they couldn't take the vehicles. But why? Because of these issues. So what exactly are we supposed to do when we have a president beforehand that caused all of these issues, and now we have to I'm going to assume pay for that?
Yeah. But it's also a function of we don't have the capacity to solve that, like the manpower, the labor, and the resources to rectify all those problems.
But we do have the capacity for like $1 trillion in tax cuts.
Oh, those are two different things.
So to be
apples to oranges, all of a sudden.
Clear, like we say that we don't have the capacity, but these terrorists that you say you don't agree with, they've wiped out a ton of wealth in this country. People are against them, and the poll numbers, his economic privilege is going down.
I feel like you're dodging the question entirely.
I want to address. Let's assume that everything you're saying in terms of what the previous administration did was wrong, illegal, immoral, however you want to say it. Why is illegal immigration wrong? Can I ask you?
Well, can you do the same thing into another country? Can we go to another country?
No,
and
you
say,
can't.
Hey,
why is it wrong for someone to come into the country legally?
Oh, well, you see, exactly, because, hold on, guys. Well, we see why, right? Look at what happened in Italy, all right? You saw what happened on that island. They got
You see why. Anecdotes.
ransacked by a bunch of people. There's only 7,500 people that live there, and there were tens of thousands that just overran that entire island. Look at what's going on in the UK with all the stabbings. Look at what's going on in Canada with all the issues that are going on.
So is the I'm hearing.
Look at all of the issues. Look at all of the things in all these other countries.
Crime. I'm hearing economic considerations. I'm hearing fiscal impact. So Trump.
But yes, being charitable, that's what he's talking about.
Trump, for instance, has said he wants immigration. He wants more immigration. Yes. He just wants it to be legal, right? You've heard him say that.
Legally.
So, and in this country, we have really low unemployment.
record low unemployment even now. So the jobs report that we just got was better than expected. So there's a labor shortage in this country in terms of the economic impact. So
That's true.
So Trump wants to bring in.
As we'll say, these illegals work all of the most vital and like underpaid jobs that like Americans don't want.
Trump has said that he wants to give, green cards to people who complete university in this country. So he's, at least as Trump says it, he's okay with immigration. He just wants it being done legally.
Exactly.
So
This
if,
is a correct
if
way
your
to-
problem, I just want to finish the point, then I'll let you guys go. If your problem with immigration at bottom is that it's illegal and disorderly, then your problem is the illegality, and therefore you should be just against illegal actions by the states.
So let me answer why illegal immigration should be illegal. Right. First, that seems redundant, right? It's illegal immigration is when you come to this country outside of our laws for properly managing influx of new people. The reason why we made it illegal, I can give you a real-world example, which is Sweden, for instance. A lot of these countries are bringing a lot of immigrants in because of their low fertility rates. That's going to cause labor shortages and economic crises. In the 90s, Sweden brought in a bunch of, I believe it was Somali refugees. These refugees were not properly integrated, and this is not to say that they were forced to, it's that the country failed them. What ended up happening was the refugees that came in legally were told, best of luck, welcome to Sweden. So what do? They formed enclaves, incidentally, not intentionally. People want to live next to each other because it's familiar, it's easy, and if you're going to get a job and provide a service in your community, speaking the language makes it a lot easier. After 20 years, this resulted in a very serious cultural problem. The children of these refugees were considered Swedes, but in their home country, they were not considered Somali. They had no home to go to, but the Swedish natural native population would not give them jobs or opportunity. What happened? They created areas of the country that were I guess say skeptical of the outside authority. This resulted in police getting attacked. It resulted in inter-gang conflict. There was a grenade thrown in 2017 onto a balcony that killed an 8-year-old British tourist. The culture that grew in these communities was entirely separate and isolated from the Swedish community because they were not properly brought in. And so, why do we make it? We want more legal immigration. We want to make sure that when people do come here legally, because we do have a labor shortage and a fertility crisis, they come in a timely and orderly manner where we can track where they're going, which communities can handle them, and which
Thank you for the subscription, Violent Smoker.
cannot. But when, let's say, even 1 million people come across the border unchecked, and we don't know where they're going, this can result in, I can call it intercommunal violence. So you run into conflicts like whether or not the story of cats being eaten is true. You get the local population in Springfield, Ohio, were livid complaining about this. Or you end up with, when I went to Sweden, one of the most fascinating things that I saw was local Swedish guy, who I think was in his 20s, told me he was terrified to go to these neighborhoods because he would be murdered. And I thought that was nuts. And I freely walked about these neighborhoods with no issue. But there was still a fear of interracial and interreligious conflict because of a lack of assimilation and integration. So for economic reasons, for cultural reasons, and to preserve the moral traditions of our country, our democratic values we do think are important, we say, guys, one at a time, right this way, please don't cheat.
Yeah, but so the problem there is, so there's a reason we have these laws. These laws are in place for some of the policy reasons that you've outlined. And the problem is when you violate that.
Because they were discriminated against, just like the Puerto Ricans, Italians, etc. That's why they form enclaves. I know. He's intensifying the problem with the attitude that he's having.
You're both violating the law. Yeah, but so the problem there is, so there's a reason we have these laws.
But then they'll use that as a pretext to see, these people can never integrate, whatever that means, into American society. That's why they can't really, we can't let too many of them in.
These laws are in place for some of the policy reasons that you've outlined. And
whatever nebulous definition of America or American they conceive of, it's going to be perfectly crafted just to exclude illegals and include everybody else who's already here.
The problem is when you violate that, you're both violating the law, but you're infringing on America's sovereignty, right? America passed these laws through our methods, democratically, and it's an expression of American will that says these amount of people can come here and no further, right? You can apply for, a green card under these conditions, but not the other conditions. You can apply for.
He's talking about assimilation, though.
But aren't you arguing that we need to increase legal immigration, right? His argument was, here's all the problems with immigration. You're like, well, if you only have a problem with illegal immigration, then we should just make more of it legal.
Well, what I'm presenting to him is that Donald Trump has said that there are a lot of benefits to legal immigration, that legal immigration would benefit the economy, right, that we do want these people, right? So I take it as a given that you agree with Trump on that, and that you agree with his policy rationale on that. And so it seems to me like the biggest problem that people have here is they're cutting the line. They're doing something.
Well, and they're not paying taxes. You have a two-tier justice system. Okay, we only have time for one more guy. So great job, T-Bone. Now the guy in the suit. I know the guy in the suit's didn't want to be here all night. Okay, so you got 1 minute, guys. This is our last one. I'm sorry we didn't get to you. We only have a limited amount of time, unless you guys want to do one more after this. But say your name, and you got your 1 minute start.
My name is Andy, and thanks so much for giving me the opportunity.
Am I going to talk to Vosh at 10:30? No.
I wanted to address what Tim
Off topic, but will you stream daily now? Yes, I'm going to be streaming at least Monday through Friday, but I don't know if I'm gonna see. I said on Friday I was going to stream yesterday, and then I didn't do it, so I did it today. So I don't know what day I'm going to take off, but I'm going to try to stream 6 out of 7 days.
Tim said regarding the existential crisis of it all and the relations of the Alien Enemies Acts and whether or not that's being applied far enough with.
No, not to Vosh. Oh, about Vosh. But did he do something, or did something happen? There's no plans yet.
Venezuela. I'm going to make some seemingly wild claims because this stuff hasn't been reported yet. But as far as Venezuela's role, the World Social Forums on Migration were 8 global conferences since 2005 that planned the weaponization of migration against the West, sponsored by Venezuela and Cuba. They essentially organized and
This dude's aura level off the charts.
Networked the NGOs and groups that facilitated the migration crisis. So whether or not immigrants are Venezuelan or not, since Venezuelan proxies, by the definition of the OAS and the U.S. Congress, helped facilitate the transfer of these immigrants, aren't all immigrants that came in as a result of a hybrid war effort alien enemies and enemy combatants?
No, by definition.
Take a seat, sir.
The Alien
I
Enemies
don't
Act.
think that's right.
No, the Alien Enemies Act allows you to designate like a foreign country, and then only citizens only. No shit, Sherlock. No, bro, do you think I just said that invasion isn't in the statute? What do you think I just said? Literally, do you think I just said invasion, physical incursion aren't in the statute? You think I haven't read the statute? No.
That guy's like schizo interpretation of how you can like launder in a bunch of people that wouldn't apply to this law, how you can like broaden it so much that it would include them, is like the type of logic that you can use to justify like all Israelis being like military targets or whatever. Like they're all settlers, they're on occupied land, therefore they're valid military targets, or they're reservists, or they're going to serve in the IDF, so they're all terrorists or whatever, or like vice versa against Palestinians.
No, yeah. So what I said was, what I said isn't contradicted by what you just said. What I'm saying is that you have to designate a country. That it's invasion. Oh my God. It does. Alien Enemies Act, you have to designate a country. So, and that country is, you can deport, detain, and send out people of that country, citizens of that country, whether they're here legally or not. A foreign entity, you have to designate one. So the proclamation that Trump issued only applies to Venezuelan nationals by definition. And so no, it doesn't apply.
I understand that. What I'm arguing is that other immigrants, by virtue of whether they're Venezuelan or not, are playing a part as weapons in Venezuela's hybrid war.
So do you think that so then you'd have to designate every country as being part of the invasion? And so
then so be it.
Okay,
Yes, so be it.
Current proclamation says, so when Trump wants to say that the whole world is invading us and issue a proclamation to that effect, I'll address it.
I mean, I think the problem is that's so attenuated from the underlying,
100%.
right? Like, is that, and also it would swallow up every other part of immigration law. Like, basically, it would.
You could deport anyone here legally or illegally for any reason.
Right. So I think that as a result.
Guys, what if we just assume that everybody's a criminal?
Well, I think that.
Have you ever considered you could just assume that everybody's a criminal, everybody's a foreign invader, everybody's collaborating with foreign invaders and part of this broad, grand strategy to end the United States of America as we know it? Just saying.
I don't even know if we actually disagree that much.
No,
I guess they probably disagree on whether or not there is a predatory incursion.
Even Americans, white people, Christians, everyone's got to go. Nobody can stay.
But just be clear, so if the Supreme Court were to uphold Trump's power under the Alien Enemies Act in this case, he could deport any Venezuelan, whether they're here legally or not. So if they're here legally, you can get rid of them too. The Alien Enemies Act is a very powerful ability for the administration to get rid of any alien, and that means any non-citizen, really.
I do think that, just real quick, we can interpret however the powers that be interpret. I mean, whoever's in charge interprets it the way they want, they enforce it the way they want. And I really do feel like whenever we have these debates, and I feel it's a lot on the culture war, I'm like, we're sitting here acting like we don't understand these laws all the time, because maybe we don't. 2 different sides, 3 different sides, different political
A massive self-report.
factions all saying, no, the law means this, no, the law means that. And it's really, at its core,
Dude, he loves going onto these tangents where nothing means anything. Who's to say if anything is right ever?
moral worldview would be this.
You think this crazy thing, I think this other insane thing. Who's to say who's right? There's no way to determine it. I guess my opinion is equally as valid as yours.
No, my moral worldview would be this, and the law is less material to the argument.
Ouch. Let's say that I cede the fact that, okay, it applies only to Venezuela. Well, then all of their proxies, which again...
Nothing is anything but civil war is imminent. Yeah.
and you can demonstrate that these groups that facilitated migration are, under U.S. and OAS definitions, proxies of foreign enemy states, shouldn't they be prosecuted and jailed under the...
for what crimes?
For Foreign Agent Registration Act. They're acting as proxies of foreign governments and not stating it. So, seditious conspiracy, RICO, since this is a hybrid war that carries all 12 dimensions of the hybrid war. I shared some research beforehand, and I hope you look
Yeah, so
you can always
under FARA, you need to have, so if you have specific evidence that they're failing to register and engage in some kind of lobbying effort, and you can point to specific individuals, I guess, but FARA also applies not just to other countries, but to foreign principles, and so that can include like foreign, one of the reasons why we should have the Burisma conversation at some point is that Burisma would be considered a foreign principle under FARA, and that's one of the issues of the Hunter Biden situation, and so I can see a cognizable case if you can show me the evidence that the specific individuals involved should, are failing to register as foreign agents.
Citizensintelligence.net has a downloadable PDF with 600 sources, about 150 pages long, and it's free along with network maps.
Can I ask about the moon necklace?
It's a pig tusk from Vanuatu. Pigs are considered sacred there because this is like mining your own pig coin. The more they curl, the more they're worth. So they pull the top teeth so the pig's tusks continue to curl. And if you got a pig with a triple curled tusk, it costs somebody a pig just to take a look at it. There's a YouTube thing called Vanuatu's Piggy Bank that's like a 15
Why did they get this guy started? He's not going to stop.
minute Australian
This guy is
special.
insane. Okay, all right, get off stage.
Thank you,
wait,
thank you.
you're almost done. The guy with the sunglasses in the back. Well, you've been looking at me all night. Come on down. What do you do?
You took
One
the
minute.
microphone already, though.
I know, but I'll just hand him mine. What do you just come up here real quick? What you've been looking at me creepy? You in the so one guy in the sunglasses.
Yep.
Hurry up. We only got 1 minute. I can already tell this guy's gonna be weird. Here, take my mic. What do you want to say? Stand back there.
I do have a quick question about
We have one question.
okay, constitutional rights. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but if an illegal immigrant were
I love how all of these people preface their insane batshit statements with, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. Like, dude, no one was assuming you were a lawyer. Don't worry.
to come here, would they have the constitutional right? Like, I have a quick question about
We have one question.
okay, constitutional rights. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but if an illegal immigrant were to come here, would they have the constitutional right, like Second Amendment rights, to buy firearms?
I think they do, yeah. The Constitution is very clear when it refers to persons and when it refers to citizens. So we had this conversation. I think you agreed with it.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be an issue of how they've changed. Like when the 14th Amendment was made, it draws a distinction between the rights of persons and the rights of citizens. But I would also add that creates an abortion issue for you if you do accept that argument.
I'm not actually sure either of you are right about this.
Wait, so for example, it says the security of so the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and that's people and other parts of the Constitution, including the requirements for president to run for president, the requirements for Congress. It refers to U.S. citizens, and in the privileges or immunities clause of the 14th Amendment, which is what he was referencing, it refers to.
Okay, I hear all that, right? Clearly, under current law, we have a lot of restrictions on aliens and what they can say that would infringe the First Amendment if applied to citizens.
I think that's up to. Well, I don't know about
espousing support for terrorism is sufficient to get you your.
Well, that's being litigated right now with the Mahmoud Khalil case.
Right, but I think you're going to lose.
We'll see.
Sorry. But my point being that if that's true, then I think you could say that an illegal alien could not be imprisoned for a crime that would not be a crime for an American citizen, but they could be deported.
Interesting.
Right? You could make it a condition of their residence.
One of the big problems with having this carve out and saying that rights don't apply to illegal immigrants, then the rule, that exception swallows the rule. And now all of a sudden you're going to be saying, and I hope you don't say it, is are you allowed to search without a warrant in an unreasonable search, let's say, of an illegal immigrant's house because they don't have Fourth Amendment rights?
No,
but that's a right of the person against the government doing something to them, right? In the same way that you can't imprison in the same reason that you can't imprison an illegal alien without due process, but you can deport them.
Yeah, but the Second Amendment has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to the delight of gun owners to be an individual right, right? That's the big win in Heller, is it's not just a militia-based right. It's an individual right to bear arms.
But so is the right to free speech.
So and the right to free speech is as well. And so if there's an individual rights component to the Fourth Amendment that protects you against unreasonable searches and seizures, surely, and it applies to people and persons, and there's a distinction between persons and citizens in the Constitution, we should read that into the Second Amendment.
But I don't think that the analogy doesn't work because there's the distinction that we're always talking about these First Amendment cases and in the Second Amendment cases is this criminal punishment versus removal.
Correct.
And I don't think that is even in the ballpark of what's going on in the Fourth Amendment, right?
So do you think, but hang on a second, so we're not just talking about criminal punishment when it comes to immigration matters. So the First Amendment, for example, applies to if you want to get a liquor license and you're a Trump supporter, imagine that the administration says something, or the Democrat administration says, you don't get a liquor license if you support Trump. Or you guys complain about the IRS, right? So let's say that the IRS institutes a policy that says something like, we're only going to do IRS audits of Trump supporters, right? Let's say they instituted that policy. So they didn't do that policy. They didn't. But let's assume.
That's what.
Just
what
chill.
Biden
Take the hype out, right, bro? Don't be less mad, all right? Jesus Christ.
All right, let him finish, guys. We're about to end this. Let Pisco finish.
That's a situation in which an investigation isn't a criminal punishment. An investigation isn't a criminal punishment. The denial of a license isn't a criminal punishment. But these rights still have, First Amendment, for example, still has purchase, even though it's not a criminal punishment. The Second Amendment, there could be some gun legislation that doesn't apply in the criminal context. It would still have purchase.
I want to just add, I do think I would like to hear a clear answer from the courts on this. Does the people mean the body of citizens, or does it mean all persons? Because when they did draft the 14th Amendment, it draws a distinction between what makes someone a citizen and what rights a person has. They're distinct.
I'm pretty sure non-citizens are protected under the 14th Amendment, under Supreme Court precedent.
If it wasn't that way, you could, as a punishment, torture non-citizens.
And I think that's right. I mean.
Oh gosh.
Anyway.
All right, we're going to end on that, guys. Thank you guys so much. Give it up for yourselves. This was the first pilot episode of the Culture War Live. Give it up for Pisco, or I don't know if Raymond would say something. Give it up for Will Chamberlain, our debaters, and of course Tim.
I'm here to say goodbye to everyone. It was a beautiful show. Shout out Tim. Fucking rock and rolling. Yeah. Culture War IRL. Pisco, the gentleman from the left. We came by the show. We appreciate you, sir. Yeah, and he has a couple guys in the crowd, and one of the gentlemen came up there, Mr. Cashel. That's fucking rock and rolling. We love that. Next time, we want more lefties. If you're watching, feel free to come in. It's a good time.
Absolutely.
The better debates, the better, right?
Yes, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Share the show with everyone. You know, smash the like button, subscribe.
Okay. Enough of that. Enough of that. He did do a really good job. Pisco sweep. People are such fucking brainlets, man. All jokes aside, delusional arguments require delusional hypotheticals. Oh, I know when Tim was saying that, like, oh, you don't want to get into this because that's going to have implications for abortion. It's like, dude, bring it on. Because he's getting, but like that, he thinks he's like saying something unique that, like, yeah, there will be people that try to argue that like fetuses are people or whatever, and that they get constitutional protections, therefore you can't abort them or something. Oh, all right. How long have you been going? Going almost 3 hours. Almost 10 p.m. my time. Okay. Well, I just wanted to do this tonight. I think I'm gonna head off. But if you enjoyed the stream, if you didn't enjoy the stream, whatever your feelings are on the stream, please be sure to give me a like on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Please be sure to follow me on Twitch if you aren't. If you want to follow me anywhere else, including Instagram, Twitter, any other social media platform, my @ is Straighterade or Straighterade_. Probably gonna be back tomorrow. We'll be doing other shenanigans. Don't know what exactly yet or what time yet. But yeah. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in and spending your Sunday night with me. So, a good one. Bye. Oh, wait, if you want to donate or tip or support the stream, ! Tip or donate in chat. See you tomorrow.